Board of Trustees meeting for March 4th, 2024 to rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of
of the United States of America
and
to the republic indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, here we go.
Are we good?
One second, I'm sorry, that's on me.
No.
Make sure we can hear ourselves. All right, Jackie, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Stones,
Present.
Gray,
Here.
Dalby,
Here.
Armstrong,
Here.
Beach,
Here.
Richardson,
Present.
Board Member Selgrave,
Here.
White. Here. Smith. Nebraska,
Yes.
Voight.
Yeah.
Erickson's here too.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Liven things up a little bit. All right, so discussion and direction regarding health insurance renewal.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everybody. My name is Alicia Wilhite. You might remember me from last year. I'm with Holmes Murphy, and we are the broker consultant for the city of Indianola and IMU's medical plan. I understand I have 15 minutes today, so I'm going to try to make this brief. Today is not meant to make any formal decisions, but meant to just provide direction on where we're at with the renewal for kind of final conversations to come. From an agenda perspective, I will move to slide 4. We will start with the medical renewal and budget. That's going to be the bulk of the conversation. We will have a few slight comments on the dental, and then we'll finish up with vision and then the life and disability. On page 5, you'll see the financial snapshot. This is really just a look at how the medical plan is running from July through January. As a self-funded plan, we do track this very closely throughout the year to see how the plan is performing. For the sake of time, I'll point you kind of to that red box there and look at the average claims and administrative cost. This is on a per employee per month basis. You can see we're at that $1,108.07. That is about 96.6% of where we've actually set our budget. So you can see that budget number there is the $1,146.91 per employee per month. So we are running a little bit higher than what we have been in the past. The past several years we've been in here reporting good news. Still have good news to share. We are under budget, but we are running a little bit higher this year. If you look at the next page, page 6, this is just a look at the medical plan design. So you can see the first column in the white, that's the current medical plan as it stands today. The city and IMU offer one medical plan for employees, and it's a high deductible health plan. The changes that you see on the right-hand side highlighted in yellow are being changed due to IRS requirements. The high deductible health plan has a minimum deductible that has to be met in order for employees to have a health savings account. Because that IRS minimum has increased, therefore, we don't really have a choice in increasing that. So you will see the deductible will go from $3,000 up to $3,200, and the for single family will go from $5,400 up to $6,000. The out-of-pocket maximum is the same number there. We are also by the same increment increasing the out-of-network deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums. Again, nothing to really decide on there. It's an IRS requirement, but wanted to make you aware of those changes. Okay. Flipping ahead to the next page is the actual renewal itself. So to preface, these rates are not yet final. They will not be finalized until early April once we have claims experience through March. Walmart does provide us with an initial renewal to help for planning purposes, and then those numbers are finalized in April. Historically, our renewal has not changed once we move to final. As a self-funded plan, our renewal is really comprised of a few things. Fixed costs, those are the network administrative fees, what we pay Wellmark to adjudicate claims, ID cards, etc. Those costs are going up by about 3%. You can see in the red there, $48.20 per employee per month, $50.75. The other big piece of the total fixed cost is the stop loss. That is getting a 15% increase. leverage trend, so what other groups are experiencing, essentially what Wellmark kind of starts at is 15%. We did have a large that drove some of that increase this year, but overall still getting a favorable renewal at that 15%. When we aggregate them together, our total fixed costs are increasing by that 11.1%. Wellmark then gives us a projection for what they expect us to spend in claims. You can see that's actually decreasing slightly, very small number there, but about 2%. That gives us our total annual expected costs, which Wellmark has projected to increase about 1.1%. So overall, really a great renewal. I do like to also put that kind of on a per employee per month basis for you. As we know, employees come on and off the plan throughout the year. So these numbers are as of our current enrollment, which is about 124 employees. But if we put that on a per employee per month basis, our renewal is that $1,171.32. On the far right side, you'll see that compared to both our 2023 budget and our 2023 actual. You can see, again, we've set that budget at the $1,146.91. So our renewal, that's about 2% under where the renewal's coming in at. If we look at how we're actually performing from a paid claims perspective, we're about 5.4% under the renewal.
Is the traditional on that, or did you say we're a little higher on that than we normally are?
Yeah, so you've had actually flat renewals the past few years where we've actually been able to decrease the budget. I think we're still in that position this year. We actually anticipated getting a higher stop loss renewal than what we did just because of our experience. We do have a large claimant that has Wellmark has paid out more reimbursements to us than we've paid in premium. So we expected that stop loss increase to be a little bit higher, but it came in still favorable.
I just want to reiterate this point that I think you made, but the expected costs are $1.7 million, but the total maximum cost that will be charged against the plan is maxed out at $2,067,000, right?
Correct, yes.
So only $325,000 above what our expected costs are. So that's really our exposure above what our expected costs are.
Correct, yep.
So that's important, especially for the new council members. That's what could be charged against our reserves, really, against the insurance. That's that $325,000 is really what the exposure, the 1 year exposure. Keep that in mind. We'll probably come back.
Yes, we will. Yep, and that's a great point. So, you know, we can set budget wherever we feel appropriate. We do purchase stop loss insurance at an aggregate level, which caps our total exposure. Again, that number fluctuates a little bit as enrollment changes, but overall that $2,067,000 is a pretty good look at what, if the plan were to have its worst case scenario year, what we could expect to pay. As I said, we do not necessarily set budget based on what Wellmark recommends. A big reason for that is we know that the city does have a large reserve that we're sitting on to help pay for some of those claims if we do go beyond what we've budgeted for. So when I show you that we're sitting at 96% of budget, you know, for some businesses that might be kind of a red flag, but the city and IMU do have a very healthy reserve set aside to pay those claims if we would go up over that 100%. I would have to get the actual total, but I believe we're at about 3 million in reserves.
And I do have those numbers.
Okay. So if we move on to decisions needed, really pretty an easy renewal this year. We did increase our specific stop loss level to 100,000 last year. That resulted in net savings of about 65,000 so far. So that was a great decision.
What was it after that?
It was 75.
75.
Yep. We would probably not look at increasing that again, at least for another year or two. $100,000 is higher than benchmark for an employer of this size. And then the other consideration is there, once we increase it, we can't go backwards. So rather than looking at 125 or even 150 this year, we're making the recommendation that we don't review any alternate stop loss levels and we stay at that 100,000 until we have another year or even two under our belt at that level. So that leaves the big decision point of where we set budget. So currently we are at 1,078 per employee per month. I will caveat and say that number is different than what I just showed you, that we're at for budget. This number that we're using here is more of a static, or I'm sorry, the budget tool that I showed you on the last slide. That's really what that number is at the time of the actual renewal. We know that, enrollment changes and fluctuates. So this number, the 1,078, is really meant to represent more of a 12-month time frame. So you have a holistic look at that budget amount. If we look at that based on 122 employees, that's about 1.57 million annually that we've set the budget for this year. We are recommending that we set the budget for next year at the 1,058 per employee per month. And that comes out to 1.6 million. That is based on average enrollment of 126. So that would increase a little bit from where we're at today with 122 enrolled to 126. I am gonna jump ahead before we get to the employee contributions piece. I will say today employees pay 14.4% of total premium. We'll show you kind of what that looks like, but I wanna jump ahead to the budget tool so you can see where these numbers are coming in. Okay, so if we look at the budget model analysis, you can see again, we have that budget of the 1,078. What we've done this year is set our basically where we're looking at from a budget perspective at the 25th percentile for both medical and pharmacy. That means that 25% of the time we would have enough to pay claims. The other 75% of the time, our claims have actually been above that level. The reason that we would recommend, or we did set it at that 25th percentile last year, is because of the reserve situation. We know that we have quite a bit of money set aside for paying those claims. So the idea is to, lower the budget so we can start to dig into some of that reserve a little bit.
How did that work this year?
What was that?
How did that work this year?
We're not really digging into the budget much. We're still at 96% of where we've set the budget. So we really haven't dug into that yet. If anything, we've built up the reserve a little bit.
We've gone flat and just barely crested to come down right now.
Overall, for the sake of time, I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit, but I think where the HR team is recommending is that we decrease funding by about 2%. Over last year, that would be about $200,000 lower than where the budget is for this year based on the changes that we've projected.
The council and the board of trustees may also consider future payment holidays as well, like you did in December.
What's our, or Chris, either one, but what's our kind of our target on the reserve? Where do we really kind of want to start looking at that? Think, okay, this is about.
I can tell you where we are right now, which is as of end of February, it was $3,058,087.32. We project coming out at about $3 million. We're just kind of cresting and coming down right now. On a 5-year trend, we've really built it up from about 1.5 million 5 years ago to the 3 million that we're at today. With the payment holiday, the changes with the IWC and the changes proposed by Holmes Murphy, we're starting to crest and see that come down. But if the council and the board of trustees wants to be more aggressive, we could sure do that. We would recommend you do that with payment holidays and things like that are one-time hits that can bring it down so that you perpetuate, for our budgeting purposes and for employees' contributions, a consistent model going forward, because eventually rates come back up and you want to have some consistency there.
What is there a number that we wanted? I mean, I don't know. I don't remember if it's some kind of a benchmark of where we want to be. I'm seeing that.
Yeah, I can advise on that. So typically we would recommend a self-funded employer have 3 months of reserves at a minimum. Some go as high as 6. On average, your claim spend in a month is around $100,000. So once we net out stop loss reimbursements and rebates, we're at about $100,000 in claims. that would put you at a $300,000 to $600,000 reserve, and that would be healthy.
Steve, another way of looking at that, probably a more conservative approach of looking at that is to have 1 year of that, which in our case would be 325,000, which is what that year's worth of claims would be. And to be conservative, then you could double that or even triple that, which would get you to,
Right.
you know, 900,000 to 1 million.
Right.
So to me, that would be on the very conservative and what the maximum amount would be for a reserve. So at 3 million, we have 3 times that.
Yeah, right.
The maximum exposure is probably for Alicia. I recall that, that aggregate maximum is set at a 1% event. Like the expectation that we would actually hit that $2 million is, you know, in any 1 year, it's a 1% event. And so having multiple years of 1% events, you know, as Adam suggested, is pretty conservative. You know, we're talking about 2 back-to-back 1% events. you know.
Yeah, so since we have $100,000 stop loss deductible purchase, it would take several employees getting up to like 80, 90,000 in claims. We're actually not worried about 1 or 2 employees having $500,000 in claims because we have protection. What we're worried about is several employees going up to that 100,000.
Right.
So it's a rare event.
On 3 million, and we're probably talking very conservative dollars, so. We've got some.
We would be comfortable with 300,000 or 400,000.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so what we've done from a budget perspective is really we've set it below Wellmark's expected. That's kind of our first baseline to look at is if we're at or above Wellmark's expected. We're setting it at the 25th percentile, which means 75% of the time our claims are projected to be over that amount, but we know that we have a reserve built up in those cases to pay for those claims that are incurred. So 25th is typically as low as we go, but we can look at lower if there's more of a desire to dip into that reserve. As Ben alluded to, there is the opportunity to maybe cut into that reserve a little bit through other things such as premium holidays. What we're showing does include leaving the HSA contribution at the $2,600. That is something that we evaluate every year. It's not a guaranteed benefit that the employee has each year, but at this time, the team is recommending we leave that in place for another year. It would be $100 per pay period for each employee. Employee rates, this shows, you know, keeping them flat as far as not changing the dollar amount. That would increase the percentage that they pay then up to 17% as opposed to the 14.4 that it is today. There is also a concierge program in place today called Alight. It was something put in place when we moved to a high deductible plan. It's meant to help employees find providers, find low cost, high quality providers, bill review, things like that. We're going on 2 years of no utilization of that program. It's not a huge dollar amount from an administrative perspective, but it is costing around $7,500 annually. It's $5 per employee per month that we pay. We did discuss if it's prudent to just remove that program since the city's paying for it. We've gone 2 years with no employee utilization. So that is a recommendation that the team is making as well. That will kind of segue into the dental piece. If you want to go to the next slide. Right now, there is no increase on the dental. So the current annual spend is around that 104,000. It will remain that for next year. We did look at some alternates to enhance the coverage that's provided to employees. You can see the alternate of 108,000. It's about a 4% increase over what the cost is today. This would include adding coverage for white fillings and fluoride application twice per year. The way the dental plan is today is a little dated. It's still a pretty standard dental plan, but we are starting to see more employers cover white fillings on your back teeth. Today, if you have a filling done, the plan will pay for you to have a silver filling and then you pay the difference between the two. It would be our recommendation to just modernize the dental plan a bit by covering those enhancements or, you know, that increase of about 4%. the discussion was utilizing the Alight program funds that we would be removing to cover the plan enhancement from the dental plan, probably a more, a nicer perk for employees. I did include some benchmarking there for you to see. So the coverage for the posterior composites, 48% of employers offering that today. The benefit frequency for fluoride, we're at 14% of employers offering that. But that's a very small piece of the upcharge. A lot of that is for the white fillings, which is the next benefit. In the interest of time, I'll spoiler alert that nothing else is changing. So the vision, the life insurance, the short-term disability and the long-term disability are all in rate guarantees. So there will be no additional cost for those in this coming year.
So under the common plan enhancements for the dental, you've got the check mark next to the implants, the X's, so you're only recommending that one?
Implants are already covered by the plan today. So we're just showing, those are three kind of more modern features that we're seeing. Implants are already covered by the city's plan. The posterior composites and the fluoride are not. So those are the two recommendations.
For vision, is there any enhancements that we could add?
Vision coverage is pretty standard. There, you can get into some lens enhancements, but overall, your plan is within benchmark.
Any other questions?
Adam, are you okay with the recommended changes on what you're?
I am, other than I would encourage the premium holiday and
Other ways to move it
other
down?
ways to be a little bit more aggressive on
Okay.
reducing the reserve.
Okay,
I mean, we had what, premium holiday in December?
December, we did it last year.
We did it in December and that.
Talked about having one in June as well, if we felt like we were in a position where we could, and then look at December again. We may actually want to be more aggressive and look kind of quarterly basic, as Chris just recommended.
And what's the cost of that, to do that 1 month ban?
It's the cost of the employer and employee contributions for a 1 month period of time. So add the $1,070 or whatever that is times the number of employees per department. But it saves each department per full-time employee. Larger departments would have larger savings, smaller departments, smaller savings.
Last year, the premium holiday cost about $110,000 between the two organizations.
For everybody.
For everyone, 110, and of that, like 38,000 was IMU portion of that holiday.
if we went 4 times a year, you're looking at about just roughly under $500,000. I think that was good. Yeah.
Bring us down,
Yeah. So you guys would be okay with 4 times a year? Council?
4 times a year.
We recommend just evaluating it on a quarterly basis, reconvening in each month, each quarter, take a look at it. If you approve it, then we just go forward that way.
Good.
Right.
So when do we make the final decision on this?
I think there was a calendar in here. March or April later. On the
Yeah,
last, on the last page, Mike.
I believe in
Very
the
last.
past, we've waited until we have final rates from Wellmark, which will come in probably the second week of April. So at that time, we can go ahead and kind of finalize the decision.
Historically, it's been that last 2 weeks of April.
If you want to so direct us to plan for a June holiday right now, we sure can do that.
I think that would be appropriate. Does everyone agree?
Well, I think the reality is we did one last year and we still had $200,000 increase.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
Now, the other reality is, so if we're on the 25% things, maybe we just hit a good year. But at the same time, I think we can have that happen a couple of times and not hurt ourselves.
I agree.
Yeah, that's where we would recommend offsetting the reserve by doing things like this. We don't want to keep setting the budget so low that we get to a point where when we burnt through the reserve, we have to come back and try to build it back up. So we want to set the budget low, but still appropriate and use, the reserve in other creative ways. So.
We'll reevaluate it quarterly, but we're gonna give direction to do that for June. And then you two will reevaluate it quarterly, I assume, and let us know.
We'll bring it to you. Yep.
Perfect.
When we have to vote on this, do we have to do it as a joint session or can this be done?
And each individual.
Thank you, IMU, for being here this evening.
You guys
And,
okay with the other small, sorry, go on, just confirmation. Are we okay with dropping a light and confirming the dental?
Based on all the recommendations.
Yeah. All right, all those in favor of, well, I need a first and second motion first.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. We're gonna take about a 2-minute break. We don't want to take long because we wanna.
I second it. I don't know who's.
Up right here.
Did you first?
We'll get a couple more chairs in here. Thank you all for being here this evening. Go ahead and open up this City of Indianola Council Study meeting. This evening, we have discussion and direction regarding the South K Street paving project. And I believe, Dave, you're gonna be leading that conversation and giving us some updates.
Good evening. December 26th seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? I'm here to give an update on the South K Street project since the council passed the resolution of necessity on the assessment part of the project. That let us go forth and into the next phase of the project, which is final plans, agreement with the utility coordination and with the DOT, and then the acquisition of right of way. So where we sit right now is there are 8 parcels, 6 owners that the project requires right of way from. All of those property owners have been communicated with an offer to purchase that right of way. They've had that offer, I think, February 4th was when that offer went out. So they've had, some time to review the offer. We're waiting, and in communication with all those property owners. We could be in a position in a short period of time to move to letting. It's not best practice to set a letting date until the right of way is secured or at least verbally agreed to. And so we're prepared within a couple days of securing the right of way to move towards a letting. We discussed with city staff the opportunity or the how we would go through possibly a special meeting so that we could speed that process up instead of waiting for the 2-week sequence to move forward. I guess we have some, again, spent a lot of time with the property owners in the assessment process in November and December. So there's shared a lot of information about the project with those property owners. And I think it's appropriate that they have a period of time to seek counsel and to get through that process. And I think we're still in that window. The project, as we've redesigned it, is a 1-year project, as we talked about. I think we have some time yet before we need to do anything drastic like split it into multiple projects, because that's another alternative that we could split it into multiple lettings and have portions of the project let that don't require right of way. We have not done that yet. That would take, some days, not weeks, but that would take some days to split the project into multiple lettings. I guess we're still in a position right now where we have some faith and hope that the acquisition process can be wound up here in the short term, and move towards a project letting and still construct this project in one construction season.
That's exactly it. So Mayor and Council, I've been a city manager now for 22 years. And throughout that entire time, there's been many times when I've run into projects where you could potentially be derailed by the acquisition of property. You never want to go ahead and what I would call bid out or let a project before having all of the right of way, because it puts the city into a position where you might have contractors that are sitting around not able to do something because they can't move forward because they don't have the right to have the temporary construction easements and/or permanent easements or fee title ownership of property that we might need to have to be able to continue the project moving forward. And an alternative, as Dave just mentioned, is that we could move forward with a phased project. We could do part of the project. It doesn't require the right of way in the other part, but that costs the residents more money and potentially has the ability to have multiple mobilizations. We always have a good faith effort to want to acquire the property under favorable terms. That's our desire. And in the 22 years I've been a city manager, I've never actually exercised the right eminent domain or the use of eminent domain to condemn property. I have on many occasions had to use the threat of eminent domain before coming to a favorable negotiation. That's a win for the property owner and a win for the city, and allows the project to move forward in favorable terms. The concern that we're running into is now a timing issue. The state of Iowa requires an extensive process for the city to consider potential eminent domain. And while we don't want to do that, and while we do want to do everything we can to work with the property owners on a positive nature, we don't want to set the city up that we've waited too long Then we start the process. The process takes a long time. And then it pushes us into a second construction season, which raises the cost on everybody else. It's unfair to the property owners out there, unfair to the city as far as the costs are concerned, and unfair to the residents that are being assessed because that would impact them as well. The more favorable terms we can have on any contract, the more beneficial it will be to those who are being assessed. So it's actually in the self-interest of those who are most affected, because those who are being assessed are also those who are receiving remuneration for easements as well. So those are the most heavily assessed because they're fronting K Street. So it's kind of in everybody's best interest to try to secure these rights of way and move the project forward. But with that said, I've had several emails from residents this past week wanting to know status. When's the project going to kick off? Has it been bid out yet? The city has had some bids on other projects. Just recently, we had the
Clinton Street culvert.
Clinton Street culvert. We had 5 bids and they came in favorably. We are coming in $200,000 less than the construction estimate. So contractors are still hungry. We think that we can get a good bid that's going to be favorable for the residents and for the city, and we can move forward this year. But we don't want to set ourselves up for failure by not necessarily pulling that trigger. It's not on your agenda for consideration this evening. We figure that the drop dead time frame would be about 6 weeks away. That being said, there's a 4-week window for setting public hearings for us to even move forward with setting a condemnation hearing and whatnot. And so we really want to have a discussion with you this evening to give you a status and where the project is, so that if the council is inclined to set us as a staff and engineering firm on a course to protect the interests of the city, concurrently, kind of a carrot and a stick approach, concurrently working with the residents to try to make it the very best possible terms to get the right of way that we need. But knowing that we have this ability, if the council were to pull the trigger in March, on March 18th, to set a public hearing for potential condemnation, which would take place 30 days later, that's my understanding.
The public hearing to start the
To
process.
start the process would go 30 days later. That allows us to then set a hearing with the adjudication process. In that entire window, while we're advertising, setting the public hearing and advertising and providing notice to the residents, we will continue in good faith to try to secure all of those and hopefully make this much ado about nothing and let that whole condemnation process fizzle out, because we've come to positive terms with the negotiation of land acquisition. We just don't want to wait that whole 2-month period in negotiations, find out we failed maybe with one property owner and it holds up the whole project for everybody. So is that a good recap of?
Yep.
Okay. And so we just want to seek your direction.
So have we, you said we have 6 property owners, 8 parcels. Have we been in contact with any of those 6 owners?
All of them.
All of them, and they just need a little bit more time?
Yeah.
They're all.
I think people need to have a opportunity for their, real estate experts or whatever they rely on. I think that we're, 1 month is really pretty limited time when you think about a decision like that. Again, we tried to provide as much information as early as possible last fall. But we were in the midst of a redesign, and we redesigned a number of things to avoid several right-of-way acquisitions that were included in the first proposal, if you recall. So we're really down to the right-of-way that we need at this point.
And those negotiations, I think it's fair to say, are all very positive right now. We just don't want to find out on the 11th hour that we're going to fail on there.
I think that there's a lot of people here this evening, and I want everyone to know that we're still committed to this project. We're just working through with your neighbors on those right of ways, and that we're not trying to pull the rug out from underneath this project. We are committed to getting it done. Any other questions?
And you're needing direction, right? Is that what you stated?
The direction we would need is, clearly, we already have the direction to go try to clear the right of way. We will continue every effort to do that. We don't want to, as staff, put anything on the agenda that is overly aggressive. This is a policy related decision. And what would be the next step is for the council to direct us to put on the March 18th agenda, the set of the public hearing to move forward with condemnation action if we need to. That would put a public hearing 30 days out at least. And then, once we have that public hearing, then the city council can take whatever action it deems necessary at that point and start the adjudication process. If we find that we have to use that process, then basically you go to the courts, you set funding aside and basically in escrow for the property owners while it's being determined. And once you do that, you can obtain the permission from the courts to move forward with the project. So at any point along the way, the council could retract and move back, but this sets us up to ensure that the project could move forward this year.
Dave, I want to back up. I'll go ahead and Steve, you have a question.
As I said, this might be a stupid question. I don't mean this to be like a gotcha question or anything like that, but this was supposed to go out to bid in February, right?
Mhm.
How did we wait until February 4th? Start sending out.
The project had to be redesigned. In order for the redesign to be completed, that gives you new layouts of what the right-of-way needs are, which diminished significantly because we shrunk the right-of-way needs. It gives you new property descriptions and whatnot. Once
Okay.
those are established and all the assessment processes completed and the development agreements moving forward, that gets us to where we are today, which is making the offer, which took place on February 4th to the 8 properties, 6 property owners.
So I've been asked that just because of that timeline that was laid out kind of back in like the fall
We would spend January having those meetings, but
of how did we,
We restarted the
Here.
process.
yeah.
okay.
Which is to everyone's benefit because we went from a 7.2 to a 2.9 million.
Oh, yeah. That was a good win.
Right.
I was just asked that.
No, good question. Very.
I don't know.
I have a question. I assume the situations with each property are a little bit different.
Yes. And there are various stages I think of their consideration, whether they're
And
outright,
again, that's, that's,
their personal.
yep, that's, it's a right-of-way acquisition. I think there's a special closed session for those kinds of discussions. That are individual.
I assume that because they're all located in different places, but I didn't want to assume that incorrectly.
Yep.
Thank you.
I think you also have to reestablish the property descriptions, is that correct then? For the right of way and then finally for the landowner, is that correct?
Correct. You have to do the
Actual-
acquisition plat and the legal
Actual
description,
survey
meets and
figure-
bounds.
Right.
Then it's this way, then it's that way.
I think we had a pretty aggressive, back to Steve's question, that was what I was gonna ask too, but back to that question, we had a pretty aggressive schedule and I understand for you having to go back and redesign and stuff. We probably should have kind of looked at that one more time and just say, hey, it was a pretty aggressive schedule and maybe not do that. I don't know where you were at in that process, but maybe some kind of an update would have been good. And then we could have kind of prepared everybody too. Hindsight.
I do appreciate, I wanna jumping through hoops to redesign this project as quickly as possible over and having number of meetings over the holidays with property owners. Property owners made time for us and we're very grateful and.
Yeah, I mean, we found ways to put some time into the schedule as well. We've modified the intersection to avoid some IMU issues and the most important guy pole in the entire community, I think.
Right.
So
I just want, again, I'm back to what the mayor said too. I just want everybody to understand we are committed to getting this project done this year as much as we possibly can, and we'll push that schedule as fast as we can. In my opinion.
I think we are on schedule. It's just a matter of.
That's my understanding, like, as I'm here, we're on schedule. What you guys are doing right now to make sure that we stay on schedule is asking us for the contingency that knocks us off schedule. Right, which if everyone, gets on board with their right of way acquisitions in a timely, respectful manner, right, for all sides. March along, it's a 1-season project, everything's good, away we go. On the off chance we bobble in some of those negotiations for a couple weeks or a couple months, and we have the back the ability to expedite the process, keep us on track.
It would be our goal to get these completed in the next few weeks, and if we did, then the letting can move forward more quickly and the project can move forward more quickly. So this is just our insurance policy.
Yeah, so the important thing for folks here to hear is that we are literally doing everything we can to keep this thing on track this year. And hopefully for the folks listening about the right of way acquisition, we still want to do it that way. We have to protect all the neighbors and all the people affected by the South Case. Project forward.
So I guess what you're asking basically is, do we move forward like on March 18th with setting a hearing for possible eminent domain or?
And part of it is that some of the parcels are ag, and that the eminent domain and ag parcels takes the 30-day, which is more than normal. Normally, we could turn that a lot faster, but since there's some agriculture property on the project, we have to stretch that out for 30-day notice.
So I guess the only question I have then would be, I mean, this is the first time that this has been mentioned to us about possibly having to really go this route. So, I mean, is there something particular that is a possible holdup on this?
Well, you don't have you don't have the right of way in hand, but it's in hand. And while we're optimistic and hopeful to secure all that right of way, and we'll do everything within our best efforts to try to negotiate, we don't want to be in a position where one holdout blows the whole project and sends us into a second year. And so this is really a protectionary measure, if you will.
And the eminent, if it did have to go that route, it would just be for the portion of property that's absolute minimum required.
Right, that's where we're at. We're at the minimum requirement. And if you recall, though, we sort of redid the resolution right before we did the resolution necessity. We had a resolution that the city indicated their authority to use eminent domain, which that's not typical in our normal project resolutions. We don't have that reference to that part of code, and on this project we have. So while I think that we talked about it, I know that that's a pretty minor part of it, but the wording of that resolution was different than other projects to reserve the right for eminent domain for this project.
And I think Snyder's been doing a great job negotiating these and taking care of trying to get it moving forward. And I think it's been well received by the residents out there. If anything, this is probably just a little bit of nervousness on city staff part, my part specifically, to make sure that this project does not slip into another fiscal year, to safeguard the interest of the city at all costs. Do not want to go down this path if we don't.
I think, no, I can say, I feel the same way. This is last resort type of thing, right?
Right, to keep us on track this year.
Yes.
Agree with that.
All right.
And hopefully we don't have to go down that path and.
I try.
So when, we would want to set that public hearing on the 18th, but I would imagine through the next few weeks, you're gonna work.
Yeah, we're gonna
aggressively
continue the
to get with
process. Like I
those
said,
people and-
we're in contact with every single property owner. I think that we're gonna, people need time to do that, and we need to provide the amount of time, but we want to also think ahead. Because there's a sequence of things that have to happen once we get to that point, and there is a lot of, believe me, I wish we'd already had the letting. So we're trying to get this project completed as best we can in the best interest of everybody.
The worst case scenario, we'd set that hearing on the 18th and it would be set for 30 days out, correct?
It would be April 22nd, which would also be our budget hearing.
And then letting in May.
Right. So, I guess that, again, that's the hard part that's when we have the public meeting and then we go approach the condemnation jury to set a meeting at that time. So that's a little bit out of our
And
hands as
how
well.
Can you get those?
Maybe there's a better way to word that. The letting is not tied to the land acquisition. It's only tied because we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we have a contractor on board and we don't have board. If the council is 100% committed to moving forward with the condemnation process, that gives more surety that we could move forward with the letting a little bit earlier.
Correct.
We still don't want to do that until the council's taken action and published and all that, but.
Right. So there's a balance. You don't have to wait till the very end. But as soon as that it's certain that you're gonna go through the due process, eminent domain process, then most governmental entities, and again, that's your decision, are confident enough to go forward with the letting. And then they indicate in the plans that these areas will be available so many days after the condemnation hearing. And usually you want to know what that date is before you go forward with the plan. So there's a,
But that could get tied up in legal, on the
Yes.
legal side too. I mean, I sat on the condemnation board here and there's one up in Carlisle that's been going on for years, a right away. It is
The way you-
specifically a right away too.
The way it typically works is for, again, governmental entity, you set a certain amount of money aside for that acquisition. The court typically gives the right to go ahead and start moving forward with the project. And then the adjudication process is really about determining the final amount that you're gonna pay. It's not that it's gonna happen or not happen, it's the amount that you're gonna.
Correction.
Sounds like I've got direction to put
Yeah.
it on the 18th. Hopefully we don't even need to because we've buttoned them all up in the next 2 weeks. We'll see. We'll be optimistic.
On you, Dave.
Good luck, Dave. Oh, you're not going anywhere for spring break.
no ma'am.
All right, are there any questions we want to go over, or anything in our upcoming agenda at the 7 p.m. meeting? Right, see, then we will take a 8-minute break, Come back at 7. I now call to order the March 4th, 2024 City Council meeting. If we rise to pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jackie, you can hold the roll.
Councilmember Stones. Present. Ray.
Here.
Dalby.
Here.
Armstrong.
Here.
Beach. Here. Richardson.
Present.
Mayor Erickson.
Present. Moving on to the public comment. I try to skip that. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak under the public comment section? Seeing none, is there any items that need to be pulled from the consent agenda? Seeing none, can I get a first and second motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Thank you. And Ben, would you like to give us a rundown?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. The consent agenda tonight consists of setting up several public hearings, one for the issuance of general obligation bonds. This is for vehicle purchases for the next several years and into our budget, planning out our vehicle purchases for that period of time. The next is a public hearing regarding the right-of-way vacation and conveyance of a portion of the alley at the 100 block of South Jefferson Way. A public hearing regarding the rezoning of property identified as Lot 3 and Lot 26 of Block N of the Fair Acres Edition. Resolution setting a public hearing for the property tax levy for April 1st at 7 p.m. for fiscal year 2025. A resolution setting a public hearing for Monday, April 1st for the Wesley Life Community, the Village of Wesley Life Community under a plan unit development. We also have the consideration and approval of a payment application number 28 for the square reconstruction project. And then several second and thirds, third consideration of the solid waste collection amendment. Second consideration of the ordinance for the fat oil and grease fog discharge program. Second consideration of the ordinance approving the rezoning of highway commercial C2 and general industrial M2 and the Elevate Indianola Comprehensive Plan for the area of 2103 East Second Avenue. Resolution adopting the Parks and Open Space Master Plan. And we do have a community open house on that plan that's set for this Wednesday at 5 p.m. And a resolution adopting the council's and establishing the council's intent to move forward under the construction manager risk model pursuant to state code, allowing us to move forward the process of selecting a construction manager for the future public safety building city hall project, as well as approval of urban revitalization designations and so.
I have a couple of quick questions, if I may, on agenda. I think Charlie answered this question. I would like to go back to item number 3 on the public hearing for Lot 3 and 26 of Block M. Charlie, would kind of quick explain that again if you can.
Yeah, no, this rezoning was, or is, I should say, we have a property owner who bought these 2 lots. They're contiguous to each other. One of them fronting Country Club, the other one just to the rear of that lot that does front that lot. Excuse me. And currently the zoning on the property is A1, which requires a 15-acre minimum lot size to build on. As such, they're requesting a rezoning to the R1 because they do intend to combine these 2 lots together and build a single family on them.
Thank you. Item E1, I assume there was no change orders on that. Is that correct? You already explained item J. There was something else here. We're set the maximum levy.
Setting the public hearing
For the maximum levy.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Questions?
Just want to confirm, Ben, we're putting the different public hearings here for the levy and for the vehicle and all that stuff. We're still gonna tear into this budget.
Yes, yeah,
It's just the process.
this is the process.
So
Jackie?
Councilmember Dalby.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Stones. Ray.
I
Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to council reports. Item A, we need a first and second motion to receive and file the January 2024 EMS billing activity report. Any questions? She is ready.
Are we still under a burn ban? We are. A little bit of rain we had today. The mist we had today.
Was that a countywide ban?
No, that was just our territory,
Okay.
which is 125 square miles. And yes, we are still under a burn ban. We'll probably be for 30 days.
County just did one too, didn't they? One.
They went countywide.
And you, for the burn ban, you were responding to a whole bunch of fires.
And Ron, new software, so that little blue thing in there is, yeah, I'll get better.
Always look at the numbers, but I appreciate that, chief.
All right.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed? Moving on, I need a first and second motion to receive and file the January 2024 treasurer's report.
so moved.
Second.
Do you have a comment? I guess from a council perspective, and it kind of went back and forth with staff, not in a bad way, but just discussion. Did we ask for a monthly update of our percentages of budget spent on each area? Is that where we were? Is that what everybody expects? On the right side, we get a compilation of what percentage we are at that budget having spent already at that point in time.
For instance, like on the health insurance, we're at 96%, what we should be at for the year.
Well, I'm talking about it like, for instance, if Park and Rec, what their budget and what they're spent and what the percentage is would be on the right side of that. So when you take,
I think Andy presented that once, right? And that was very helpful.
yeah, but that's what we'd like to see on a monthly basis. Is that correct?
So that would be not the treasurer's report, but really just a financial statement each month that follows that same model.
Yeah. If that's okay with everybody?
Typically our reconciliations take place mid-month for the prior month.
Yeah.
So they're always going to be about 2 to 4 weeks behind. If that's okay. All right.
We understand that.
Great.
So just have a question. I've been following council long before I was on, and there wasn't a December report. Because Andy was gone.
I thought I had, I'll double check that. Thank you.
We can certainly email out to everybody.
Jackie, are you clear on what we need to have then on that? Okay.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any council committee reports?
Do you want to do the tour or you want me to do that?
You can do it. Sure, go ahead.
Last Wednesday night, we had a number of staff members and elected officials attend Iowa League of Cities Goodwill Tour that took place at the Wellness Center. We also had folks from, and correct me if I'm wrong here, from Cumming, Mohawk, Carlisle, Milo. Did New Virginia send anybody? Did they not make it? And from everybody, Ben, you said the discussion was good. I know Jackie did as well. I know the mayor's talked about that. Ron mentioned the discussion was very, very good on a number of topics. Essentially what they did was cover, kind of went through a thing about what cities are seeing as good things and what things are bad right now, or what issues they have. Went into what the league can do to help them, and then more importantly, talk about legislation that's in front of the Iowa legislature right now and how to impact some of that. So very good discussion, very good turnout. I don't remember what you said the numbers were, but the league was very impressed as well. I was on a legislative policy committee meeting this morning, league, and Ellen Kemp was very complimentary for us doing this.
To everyone who attended the event.
It was a good event.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good conversation, so.
Yeah, I think Steve and Melissa was there as well. And
Very good. Any other reports? Moving on into the mayor's report. one of my mayor's youth council members here this evening, Riley Holmes. Probably my favorite. I think she's the only one that's come this year outside of Audrey, so probably gonna be the president next year as a sophomore. Last week, the mayor's youth council and I and Jamie with, I don't know why I just blanked on her name, don't tell her Doug. Jamie with Parks and Rec, we took it to our KCCI and we were just preparing for Bike Fest on June 8th, so all I've got really going on. We will move on to public consideration under old business, the West Clinton Avenue Culvert Improvement Project. I need a first and second motion to open the public hearing regarding the West Clinton Culvert Improvement Project.
I'll move.
Jackie?
Choice is free.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Jones. Reed.
Aye.
Dolby.
I,
Armstrong.
Okay, we're now in the public hearing.
Council, this project is a stormwater improvement project on West Clinton Street between L Street and N Street. So your action items tonight is basically to hold a public hearing and then approve the same for the plan specifications and contract. Then your second one is to approve the notice of award to the low bidder. Fortunately, we have received 5 bids. The low bidder is from Absolute Group, which is approximately $200,000 below the engineer's estimate. So we are requesting your approval to give the notice award to Absolute Group and also to approve a 10% contingency amount, which will, in case there's a unforeseen circumstance on the construction, it gives staff the ability to move forward there rather than wait for council meetings to come. We will be presenting these change orders to council after the fact, but that is an approval that we are requesting for. In addition to that, we're also seeking direction. No action is needed on that, but we are seeking direction from council if we can start discussing with the contractor about a change order for changing the type of erosion control from riprap to vegetated concrete mats, which is generally it is a little more expensive than ripraps, but the construction contract is significantly lower than what we initially estimated. So we are hoping that the contractor will come up with a very competitive price on the vegetative mat. It's more user-friendly on your backyards compared to ripraps. Is the reason why we want to get that from council, whether you will allow staff to go and get that direction and move forward with the contractor to negotiate the bids on that erosion control. So that's all I have for this item.
Questions for AP?
could you explain a little bit, AP, what those wraps are? Is it poured concrete?
So we have done that in Hillcrest. Ripraps are large boulders, huge rocks that you put down on both sides to avoid the erosion. These are also large concrete blocks, but it's like mats that have metal rods inserted in them. At the same time, it may not be as visible as riprap stones where the vegetation seeds or any other weeds can grow along that, and it can be, you can control the type of vegetation that goes there. So it does the same job of erosion control, but we have the same one in where we are using that. It looks like a mat, but some grass can grow on that.
We have a ballpark of what the difference would be between that and the riprap?
For the cost?
Yes.
So yeah, we have that. I don't have the exact breakdown on that currently. We have on the downstream, sorry, on the upstream end of the culvert, we have some ripraps associated with that. We are hoping that they will use the same unit bid item, but I don't have, I mean, I'll have to dig that up and get that number to you, but I don't have the cost with me at this time, so.
I think it's just a little difficult to decide if it's worth, or at least for me, giving direction or if we don't know what it's gonna cost.
Yeah, but tonight you're not taking an action on this, it's just allowing staff to have a discussion.
To be clear.
According to what Snyder had in there. Got a couple questions ago. Riprap, Class E revetment, is that what we're talking about here? Pete?
Yep, that's the one, riprap.
Yeah. Was they were figuring about 4.6, based on a ton, it was about 13,000. The Flex Mat Plus was gonna be about. My question, AP, is then are we going to hold them to the unit cost? This was Snyder, that wasn't their unit cost, so I don't know what their unit cost came back on that, but are we gonna hold them to that unit cost on those items then?
So it'll be a discussion if by the specifications, if it exceeds 20%, the contractor has a right to not bid by the unit prices that he has given, you know, so basically the contractor has the right to change that, but at this time, we are hoping that he will stay with the unit prices that has been bid for.
Do we also have a limit then on the profit and overhead that comes on the change orders then? Our contract, is that part of the standard contract?
Sorry, I didn't get you.
Well, I mean, are we saying that they are limited to 15% of profit and overhead then above and beyond in that change order? Or are we looking at unlimited numbers on that profit and overhead? Because a lot of times in change orders, we know that's where they tend to make a lot of more money than they would normally in a normal bid situation.
So generally, SUDAS has 20% limit.
Sorry, what?
20% limit. So if they exceed 20%, they have the right to go, or they can go with a different price, you know, but with that being said, we wanted to start the discussion and see what pricing they will give for that.
I want to clarify that it's not 20% profit. It's if the quantity changes by 20%, they can renegotiate the bid price. So only force account project or force account or change orders do we calculate profit and overhead. It's all on the unit basis. So we use our database of unit prices and make sure that it's in line with that. I think that it would be, our first approach is to try and get the Flex-O-Mat where it's gonna do the most good, where it's gonna reduce some of the trouble. I mean, this is a special culvert. I mean, this is kind of a cool culvert.
Right.
And it's designed to overtop before it backs water into the upstream neighbors. So that's part of why this protection is so important. It's such an important part of the project. So we'll want to make sure that we get the Flex-O-Mat where it's going to do the most good and not just trade everything out.
So,
If that makes sense.
but the real question then becomes, why didn't we get that in the original bid?
We didn't think that we had the budget for it. And the riprap will work, it lasts longer. It's not as pretty. With the Flex-O-Mat, you can get vegetation. So again, we want to be judicious in where we use that. So that it's closest to the yards and things of that nature where we have it planned for.
So 50,000 is what percent of the total cost of the project then? Is what you're asking for in a.
Approximately 10%.
Sorry?
10% project.
The other part of that is, again, this is a very special culvert. There's a culvert that comes in from the west that out in underneath the pavement, 90 degrees into this existing culvert. There's no as-built on it. We don't know whether it's a big blob of concrete or just holding together, but there is, I would anticipate that part of the project, there's a chance we're gonna find something that is gonna give us trouble.
Well, that's always been a problematic area anyway.
Yep.
On the hill on both sides and all sides surrounds down the valleys.
Riprap was good enough design to start with. Is there anything that prohibits us from taking this $200,000 savings and using it for other projects?
No, I mean, this riprap will work for sure. It's not.
Not as pretty, but it lasts longer.
Well, it's just the same. I mean, the Flex-O-Mat's pretty solid stuff.
Would that only be on the north side of the road?
So currently, we have some Flex-O-Mat on the south side of the road. We are proposing that if we can get the same or bigger concrete rate, we are proposing on the north side of the road.
So currently there is no open culvert on the south side, right? So we're going to add. the culvert's gonna be exposed, right, on the south side of the road?
It'll be open box.
So I'm not sure I understand the question. So
Well, I'm looking at Beacon, right, so if you look on the north side of the road, you can see the culvert where the stream runs into. And when I was looking at just the diagram in the packet, the culvert kind of runs diagonal, right, kind of runs to the southeast a little bit. Is it open on the south side, or is it all, I guess?
it's enclosed up to the sidewalk. There's a head wall near the sidewalk, so it's all buried underneath.
Okay,
It looks a little funny because, again, this is a special culvert. It's got a throat that's 10 feet wide. And then it drops down 1.5 feet and narrows in to fit within the existing, where the existing culvert is, so we're not removing a bunch of utilities. So it's got a fancy tapered inlet, and that's why it maybe looks a little silly, because there is gonna be a kind of this flume area on the inlet side that will be exposed. And then it'll be surrounded by riprap. So in times of high water, there'll be water coming in 3 sides into that little flume inlet.
okay.
That go after it goes south past the roadway there, does that go down between the houses then? Is that, or is it into a storm sewer then and goes out, or is it above ground?
Basically from the intersection of Boston and J Street is where kind of there's a couple different storm sewer systems that come out and empty into the would be the northwest corner of that intersection. It's kind of a low spot from all 4 directions. That's when it turns into an open channel and then goes through backyards. There's a couple bridges back there.
I know where they are.
So, and then north of there it continues till it crosses, I think Iowa Avenue's next.
By redoing this, Dave, we're not going to create further downstream problems for those neighbors, are we?
No, so part of the reason there's a fairly significant stilling basin on the downstream end or the north side of the roadway, and that's, we're going to, hopefully reduce the velocity, the outlet velocity. Right now, the culvert's undersized, so it's under pressure and
shoots out of there.
You betcha.
Yeah.
So again, this drop inlet is gonna set a hydraulic control so that'll stabilize the stream upstream. It's built in so that the road will overtop. So that again, that's kind of the maximum thing. So we'll have water going over top of the road in a greater than a 10-year event. But we plan for that. That's where the flex mats on that side of the road.
The retention area.
Yep. And then we have a stilling basin on the outlet side so that hopefully we can tame that velocity a little bit. So that's kind of, hopefully we'll get us some stability or a good hydraulic control on.
Any other questions? Anyone in the public who'd like to speak on this issue? Seeing none. Can I get a first and second to close the public hearing? Jackie?
Councilmember Solms? Aye. Brave?
Aye.
Dolby?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Beach? Aye. Richardson?
Aye.
Can I get a first and second motion to the resolution approving the plan specifications, forms of contract, and estimates of cost for the West Clinton Culvert Improvement Project?
Do we need to add $50,000 contingent in that then, or is that part of the?
I think we're just starting the negotiations. That would come back to you in the future.
Okay.
If you approve in future, the great.
So this one is for the public hearing on the plans, sorry, the resolution on the plans. This one will not. The next item is where you.
Okay.
Okay, so first and second motion?
So moved.
I think we already have a motion, don't we?
No, we didn't.
Sorry.
Jackie?
Councilmember Beach?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Stones? Aye. Brave?
Aye.
Dolby?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Okay, first and second motion on a resolution awarding contract for the West Clinton Culvert Improvement Project. Jackie?
Councilmember Dolby?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Beach? Aye. Richardson?
Aye.
Stones? Aye. Brave?
Aye.
Moving on to the community development block grant.
So I'm clear, look, if I may, just interrupt you just a second. So we will know though, once prices come back, we'll have an idea whether or not we want to move that process forward. Is that correct?
Yes.
Need to know.
Second motion to the public hearing to take public comments and questions about the proposed submittal of a grant application for the community development block grant, which would be used for exterior renovations of downtown building lots.
Move.
Jackie?
Councilmember Sons.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Selby.
Aye.
Armstrong. Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
We're now in the public hearing.
First of all, Mayor, if I can, I just want to jump in really quick before Caleb talks and just kind of give council a quick update on this project. So you'll recall, and I think it was the meeting right before Thanksgiving, we had this same process. We're gonna go through the same thing again. Reason being is our initial application, we did submit, there was some deficiencies in our initial application that IEDA got back to us. They're giving us another opportunity to kind of correct those deficiencies and resubmit. As part of that process, we have to go through this same process again to get that application submitted. So I just wanted council to be aware that we're doing this for a second time, but I'll hand it over to Caleb with Mid-Iowa Planning Alliance and he'll go through the process again.
Thank you, Charlie. Mayor, council, it's same process as Charlie said. I'm going to read verbatim what the state requires. So it's riveting, so bear with me. The city of Indianola is requesting the Community Development Block Grant, CBG, financial assistance to undertake downtown revitalization project impacting the facades of an estimated 8 buildings in downtown Indianola. The need for the project was determined through analysis of physical condition, which included slum and blight assessment, finding the targeted area as meeting the federal definition of slum and blight. The city council in 2021 passed a resolution to declare the project area as slum and blight area. The nature of the project is renovation of an estimated 8 blighted exterior street facing building facades within the targeted area of the district. Where possible and relevant, Secretary of Interior standards for rehab and historic buildings will be utilized. The total cost for CDBG funded portion of the project are estimated to be approximately $1,230,000. The city will request up to $650,000 CDBG funds from Iowa Economic Development Authority, payable as a grant to the city for work to be performed. The matching funds will come from the city of Indianola. Approximately $315,000. Private building owners impacted will pay approximately $265,000. We anticipate the application for CDB funds will be submitted to IEDA on or before March 31st, 2024. All project activities will occur in the downtown area. It is anticipated that no households or businesses will permanently be displaced or relocated as a result of this project. In the event someone is displaced, the city of Indianola will provide any assistance required by law to those impacted. For more information, please contact myself, Caleb Knutson at MIPA, C Knutson at Mid-Iowa Planning Alliance. .org, sorry.
I thought you did great, Caleb.
Yeah, I'm gonna have this memorized here soon.
Any questions? for
Yeah.
Caleb?
Ugh.
Well, thank you. Any questions or comments from anyone in the audience? All right, seeing none, can I get a first and second motion to close the public hearing?
Moved.
Councilmember Armstrong.
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Stones. Ray.
Aye.
Selby.
Aye.
I need a first and second motion for a resolution approving a grant application for the Iowa Economic Development Authority Downtown Revitalization Fund. Funded, it's a really long one. Funded through, I like, thought it was a period, not a comma. Funded through a community development block grant, which would be used for exterior renovations of downtown building facades.
We'll move.
There's a second,
Second.
Jackie?
Councilmember Ray.
Aye.
Selby.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Stones.
Aye.
We need a first and second motion on a resolution approving a community development and housing needs development assessment.
So moved.
Jackie?
Councilmember Richardson.
Aye.
Stones. Ray.
Aye.
Dolby.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Lee, I need a first and second motion on a resolution approving a letter of funding commitment for the Community Development Block Grant, which would be used for the exterior renovations of downtown building.
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions? Jackie?
Councilmember Stones.
Aye.
Ray.
Aye.
Dolby.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
This. Thank you, Caleb, for being down here this evening. Probably was I supposed to let you talk about those, say all those again?
Nope, I had them up here in case it ever came up, but
Right. Thank you, Caleb. We
thank you very
appreciate it.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 3 is a resolution approving of brush facility services for 2024. I need a first and second motion.
Gosh, yeah.
Quiet.
Everyone's being quiet. Caleb, if you'd like to come forward.
So on April 20th will be our spring drop off for appliances, hazardous waste, and electronics at the brush facility. Week of April 22nd, we'll have our curbside cleanup instead of recycling, where people will be allowed to put their large bulky items, household items out on the curb. October 19th, we'll have our fall cleanup, which will be pretty much like our curbside cleanup, except for people will have to bring it to the brush facility. And then the brush facility dates will be April 6th to November 24th. They'll be closed on May 26th, July 4th, September 1st, and November 10th. And hours will be Thursday, 12 to 7, Saturday, 9 to 4, and 12 to 4 on Sunday. And we're gonna take a free electronic waste while the brush facility is open. So people will be able to bring their TVs and computers and computer monitors and drop them off, and then the city staff will take care of them. So on the second Sunday of every month, the staff will be, as at the brush facility, loading mulch. People that pay $10 for it. And yeah, as you can see, most of the mulch loaded is in the first 3 months, April, May, and June. So we're looking to reduce the time we're there from 8 months of the year to 3 months of the year. It costs roughly, actually it costs $321.41 to have staff and equipment there on the Saturday to load mulch. We loaded 50 loads last year.
Was that number, I'm sorry?
We loaded 50 loads,
No, what was the cost? I'm sorry. Ken.
$321.41 to have the staff and equipment there
Each month.
for each Saturday. For a total of $2,571.28.
Generated $500.
Yes. So the citizens will still be able to get, even if we're not there, they'll be able to load, self-load all the mulch they want for free. We're just gonna reduce the amount of time that we're there from to the busier time frame. That's what we're asking. And then we're looking at keeping all the rates the same, except for removing small trucks, large trucks, and trailer loads going from 12 feet to 14 feet, no dump trailers. And the reason we're asking for that is this is a service that's provided to the residents of Indianola. For them to bring their brush in is not a service that's meant for contractors. Bring their removals in. So right now have a pile of large logs that we are unable to grind. That were brought in. And if to get rid of them is an additional expense. Beyond what we bring in for $75 for a truckload.
If I could just, what is the size of a log that somebody could You know, say you had a tree or something, what is this? Do you have a diameter on that or anything?
There's no set diameter. Well, I mean, there's no limit on what people can load into the back of their pickup.
That's true.
Around and up to 14.
So,
foot trailer.
and when we say pickup loads, I mean, we're going pickup trucks, everybody with a box on the back, a tailgate, no flatbeds and no 1-ton trucks.
They tried to get rid of their tree and they had to like do 6 loads, you know,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
a little more than $75 and
yeah. I mean, right now we got a pile of logs and some of the diameter is 6-7 feet in diameter logs that is $75 and we're looking at $1,000 to get rid of them out of our brush facility. Or bringing in, having to pay a larger brush facility contract, more on brush grinding to bring in a different piece of equipment.
I have a question on the bags and bundles of leaves, grass.
Yes,
There is a period in which they can bring them for free, right?
yes, there is. It is, sorry about that. April 6th through April 21st, and then November 2nd through the 24th of November.
And I just have a question is,
Send us a copy of this.
It's in the packet,
This?
not specifically that.
it's just typed out and,
It's just, yeah, different.
so we allow them to bring appliances and electronics for free. But then we charge them to drop off bags of leaves and grass.
It's only one time, it's only on the spring cleanup days they can bring those, right?
Only the spring and fall cleanup will you be allowed to bring appliances. The TVs, we used to have a recycling service. We did not receive any bids on that. So we left the TVs as free because at the previous city I worked for, old TVs were one of the most common things that were illegally dumped when they break because they're too big to fit into trash cans. So either people would dump them at stores and businesses, dumpsters or around them, or they would go to alleyways and ditches on our less traveled roads.
Okay, so this
So the-
drop off of electronics is anytime?
It will be while the brush facility is open. So it will be a minimal charge. We'll store them in the shed like they have been done before. That staff will go out there every so often and just remove them and put them in the dumpster to get rid of them.
This, in the next edition of the Indianola magazine.
Yes, it would be if it's approved. I mean, this is, right now, what you have been seeing has been what would be in the magazine without any changes made to it. If there's change, you guys have approved the changes, we'll make the corrections tomorrow.
We have a way to post this on our Indianola community page too.
Yeah, Aaron Young, Communications Manager for the city. We do have communication already drafted following tonight's approval. So once we get through tonight, it'll be on the website for the public and anyone and everyone is able to access information. It'll be in the next community update and obviously on social media. So we do have communication drafted and ready to go.
Thank you, Aaron. So I've got a, Caleb, you're not gonna like this question. So the weather has been really, really nice. Somebody was mowing their lawn today in my neighborhood.
Good for them.
It wasn't my husband, promise.
It wasn't me either. I was looking around who it was, but, and somebody had asked me yesterday if we would have any possible one-time drop-off date in March, and I said, bring it up this evening, but
No plans for it as of
I
right now.
didn't think we did, but thank you.
I'm sorry, can I go back to my point about we allow them to bring electronics because we don't want them dumping them. But we charge them to bring leaves and grass. We want to promote a beautiful city.
Yes.
I don't know, I just think charging them to bring leaves and grass, which are going to break down and or we're going to end up burning in the end.
We do not burn.
We don't burn.
No, they
Okay.
do not burn. So everything is,
So everything just breaks down.
no, So we haul out, the reason we charge for leaves and grass route other than during the spring and the fall is we do haul out. All that material gets hauled to the landfill
So we
to be
get
turned
charged
into
for that.
compost, so we have to pay a bill on it. And then all the brush that is brought in, we grind up for mulch. So we had a company come in and grind this fall, and it was $6,875 to grind it up.
Thank you for helping me understand that.
So the $2 bill helps cover the cost. It doesn't cover the cost, it helps cover the cost.
Sure.
It's
Thank you,
probably
that
also
helps.
fair saying that the brush facility is in no way, shape or form a revenue generator for us.
Right.
It's,
I understand. I guess going back to the whole recycling thing in general, you know, we voted to charge $75 to cover the increase in the, you know,
35 cents.
bring.
35 cents.
35 cents. What's going to your dollars?
75 cents.
That would be a revenue generator.
That would be a really big increase.
so
For the spring cleanup, curbside,
that covers the curbside sprinkling.
yeah. So I guess I was just thinking, should we consider something similar to just include it all? Maybe not, because some people would mulch theirs and never use it. So I appreciate you understand this. I don't know how anyone else feels.
Then there was one more point in the memorandum is we hire 2 part-time employees to run the brush facility on the 3 days. As of right now, or as of when this presentation was turned in, we had 1 application. So in the past, street personnel has covered the brush facility to keep it open on multiple weekends. Request for consideration would be if we do not get enough brush facility monitors to cover it, that we reduce the hours to every other weekend.
What are the requirements for somebody to have at that facility, in case anybody be interested in applying?
Someone that can work in the United States and older than 18 and is willing to work for the wages paid for 3 days a week.
But it has to be over age 18, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they have to be legally able to work.
This might be a little bit off the wall, but have you ever, you got that big pile of logs that you can't grind up. Are they too big to have somebody come in with a splitter and do some things with that and split up some of those logs?
So there's not a piece of wood that you would pull out your backyard splitter and split into firewood.
So in other words,
This would require a special piece of equipment to split it into smaller pieces. And I only know of 1 company in the Des Moines metro area that has one. They charge a healthy rate.
yeah, I'm sure they do. Just a question.
All right, Jackie.
Councilmember Dolly,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Page,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Stones. Gray.
Aye.
Right, item number 4, discussion and direction regarding infrastructure funding in the Kentucky Ridge development. Developers were here back in December 18th, our study session. Charlie, would you like to walk us through this a little bit?
Just start it back up here really quick. Okay, so last time we talked about this with council, it was back on the December 18th council meeting. We did get some direction from council to kind of go back to the table. Really look at kind of the issue that we're having with that sanitary sewer line in there that's exposed. Get council some more information on some of our cost estimates on what it would cost to fix the issues that were taking place and the reasons why that line was exposed. So working with our sanitary sewer engineer, HR Green, we've come up with essentially 5 options. You'll see them
explained here in three options, with option 2 and option 3 having a 1 or 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B. So I'll kind of go through these really quick, but this is option 1 on the screen here. It does involve replacing about 293 lineal feet of existing sanitary sewer line in its existing space. It does encase the sanitary sewer pipe in special concrete underneath the stream channel. And this new sanitary sewer pipe would be classified to handle future filling of the ravine, but this option does not include any pricing for filling the ravine or any grading work to make the site ready for future development. It does incorporate a few stormwater improvements, including installing a new stilling basin with riprap stones, which is just kind of on the screen here. It's on the bottom side of that because that stream runs south to north there. But you can kind of see that red text there will show you where they're putting that stilling basin in there to kind of slow that stormwater flow down. The new stilling basin will serve to contain stormwater and either dissipate energy or trap solids discharged into it. Looking at this cost estimate, this option here just to fix that sanitary line and make those minimal stormwater improvements is $218,000. And you'll see on this was included in your memo, but what this does is it fixes all the issue that we know of on site. It just does not fill in that ravine to make it development ready. Option 2, two options that do fill in the ravine to make it development ready. Option 2A shown here, option 2, both options prepare the area for new development by replacing the existing sanitary sewer and storm sewer systems and grading and filling the entire ravine. Option 2A does aim to accommodate the proposed Kentucky Ridge site plan, while option 2B, which I'll show you next, involves regrading the site to a level suitable for new development. It's not the exact same plan that they have. So option 2A, following the site plan for Kentucky Ridge, is estimated at about 1.5 million, just a little bit north of there. Again, does make the site development ready. And then option 2B is a little bit cheaper, about 1.3, just a little bit north of 1.3 million. And again, that does provide a little bit different of a grading plan, but a plan that does make it suitable for development. The last option, option 3, again, does give a 3A and 3B. Both alternatives do relocate the existing sanitary sewer run away from the ravine, protecting it from future erosion. So instead of running that sanitary sewer line somewhat parallel to the existing stream bed, does take it off that stream bed a little bit. Both options, one goes to the east, one goes to the west, but that would protect it from any future erosion. 3A does reroute the sanitary sewer line to the east, 3B does reroute it to the west. This option, again, does not include filling the ravine and does not incorporate any stormwater improvements, and it does not include grading work to make the site ready for future development. So option 3A here, rerouting that line to the east is at a cost estimate of $248,000. And then the one that reroutes it a little bit to the west is at a cost estimate of $211,000. Now, in all of these, one thing the cost estimate does not include is any future easement acquisition. We believe that we've got a prescriptive easement where that sanitary sewer line currently runs today. However, even in any project that we do, we would still need to work with the landowner on making sure that we secure the appropriate easements. Option 3, the last option that we're looking at, would definitely require new easements to be acquired on the property to get that line in there. So we're looking at some just basic cost estimates here that show what the construction cost would be. There is some easement acquisition that would need to take place that would most likely increase those costs just a little bit. It's hard to say exactly what that be. I think our estimate is probably somewhere in the $20,000 to $30,000 range typically for something like that, and just the work that it would take to get it done. So those estimates, I believe, are what council was asking for. Happy to have more of a discussion or answer any questions from the council on these options. And the other thing I know the developer, just some communication that we had today, I know council was included on one of those communication. There is an updated cost estimate that they have provided here. I'll pass that out just so you have it. And I think the developer probably will speak here at some point and reference this. So I'll pass that on.
Just a single page.
Double-sided, but yes, single page. So, any questions?
Couple, Charlie. So on options, 3A and 3B, would the development still gonna be over the top of it, correct?
Yes.
Are they encased in concrete as well?
Not on those ones. So the only reason we're encasing the first one in concrete is to protect it from any future erosion on the stream bed. So this option 3 again shifts that sanitary sewer line away from the stream bed, so we don't need to do it. I guess one thing I did fail to note at the beginning of the presentation is that all of these options do put a sanitary sewer pipe in that is classified to handle any future fill of the site.
And all of these, I'm assuming the pipe down where it is, none of them bring it up.
Yeah, it is all underground.
But I mean,
Elevations.
elevation wise.
Yeah,
It's a slope. You can't lift it up because it'll create a hill in the flow. It has to flow.
It would generally follow these same elevations that it's at right now. Without doing engineering on it, we, there could be a shift of 1/10 of a foot here or there, but mostly it's going to follow that same elevation line.
Mr. Cannon, would you like to say anything?
Yep, Mayor, members of the council, Eric Cannon, 2727 Snyder Associates, Snyder Boulevard, Snyder Associates. We do have the design team here as well, or the ownership team here. Really, I guess, a couple questions we have on this one is, I understand that you've had another consultant go through this, look at these. Kind of maybe I'll just touch on each of them just to kind of, I guess, provide a little context or background where we're from. The option 1, I guess we really struggle with that one. Right now, the pipe is literally exposed in the channel. Replacing it where it is won't change that it's still going to be exposed. You can encase it in concrete. In essence, that would create a small dam in there. They call it a stilling basin. But in essence, you're going to have a small little pond in there behind this pipe that'll be blocked by this concrete encased pipe. So that's one that, again, I don't want to speak to your consultant and kind of what they're looking to do, but we struggle with that. Is it a long-term viable solution for the city to still have an exposed pipe in the bottom of that channel? You put riprap over it, you can do all those things, but it's still going to be in the way of flow, impeding flow through that channel. Which is, when we talked about this before, the need to consider filling in that ditch because we do have an exposed pipe there. And the options of going out and around, either way, is it possible? Yes. Are you gonna get into the daycare parking lot? We have crossings of that Twin 96. If you put it on the east side, now you don't have service on the west. If you put it on the west side, now you don't have service on the east. It does take up more development area to run that easement there. We're trying to keep the culvert and the sanitary sewer in the same location to maximize usable space. I know there's differences in cost between what they have actually bid with prices and contractors and approved plans. This is a sketch, I guess I would say. It is on our Snyder drawing. I just want to say we did not prepare it. That was done by a separate consultant. So I just want to be clear on that. They've got a 21-foot wide by 10-foot deep by 15-foot long manhole. I've never seen one of those in my career. So there's a lot of high level, I guess, concept work being done here. Really, it's taken us back to a point of, how feasible is it? Do we want to fill in the ditch or not? I think that's kind of the fundamental question that's getting asked here. And I know these guys have been very patient, trying to work through all these details with you. They've got the ability to perform the work, and depending on where we go, this would potentially put us in a position where we're taking a step back. And time is of the essence, I guess, is their big point. So I don't want to speak for everybody here, but those are kind of the points that they wanted to relay here. We appreciate all the work that everybody's doing, the consideration that's being taken here. We would like to be able to be in a position to start moving with the project at some point. So happy to answer any questions you guys have. There's a lot on the table here. I can't speak to all of this information. We didn't prepare it. I could speak to the plans that we have designed and have been approved and are ready for construction. If you guys do have specific questions on those. Thank you.
And I guess I just want to back up really quick too and just rehash the direction we were giving back in November. And it was look at what the cost would be if we were to go in and fix one of these issues. I took it as kind of the assumption as if no development was happening and we knew the issue was there, what would it cost us to go in there and take care of that issue without any development? We're not necessarily saying this is a better alternative to make this development work. We're just trying to point out that these what the city's costs would be if we were going in there and taking care of that issue. Does that make sense?
To me, I think what it really boils down to is who's gonna pay for the filling of the ditch. And I think that's really what it boils down to. I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but you know, it's gonna be the taxpayers, or is it gonna be the developer? I think that's really what we're trying to hash out here, right?
One of the pieces of legislation in State House right now is on stormwater and how that's all handled, and the legislation wants the city to pick up the costs of all of those, but what that essentially does, transfer all of the cost of a development for stormwater, anyway, stormwater concerns into all the taxpayers. And so we would be paying for that development. I'd be paying for that development, whether it's this development or any of the ones we're doing in town. That's what the legislation would do. And that's one of the arguments that we've made against that legislation, is that it shouldn't be on the back of the taxpayers to pay for developers development to fill in or to take care of stormwater and runoff. And so that's one of the concerns too at the state, and that's legislation that's pending right now from the state legislature. And it just transfers the cost to all the taxpayers, as you just said, so. Yeah.
We need to identify, and that's what we were trying, back in December, that was the same thing. I know I went back and I rewatched that study session today, and the number that we were floating around, and Cody, it wasn't you even said it's not 100%, but 1.35 was the number that we were discussing on that. We see a range of numbers, so.
So then if the council decides that the taxpayers are gonna pay for it, maybe the question is how we're gonna pay for it. I mean, what's the options, financially speaking?
And again, the initial direction that we got from council when we first talked about this was to get in a development agreement where we were using TIF dollars to repay their ask on the back end. Typically how that works is in the development agreement, the developer goes out, they develop the site, they build the structures start generating tax revenue. That revenue gets put into another fund, and then we rebate that back once those taxes are getting collected. So that was the initial direction we had. So I think the agreement, don't want to speak for everybody. I know there's a few new members here on the council from the previous discussion, but again, our direction was that we would use TIF dollars to rebate the project back, but again, rebating it back could take 5 to 10 years before the developer's fully paid back on that project, depending on what the term of the TIF is. Then in December, when we had the next discussion was, well, let's take a look and see if there is any way for us to do some funding upfront to help them out. As we look at it again, I know our TIF, you know, you've got the financial reports from the meeting today. I know our TIF does have some balance in it, but those funds are all committed. And we have projects out there in multiple areas that are using TIF dollars to get repaid on our bonds. So the issue that from staff standpoint, when we present that, it's, you know, if we were to take 2 million out of that TIF fund and use it on this development, and this development ultimately does not perform, then we've got to figure out how we're going to repay those bonds. And that's somewhat of a struggle for us to come to terms with, where, yeah, we could probably do a little bit upfront and maybe that risk is lessened a little bit. And we also need to find out where those monies are going to come from, because we can't just take TIF dollars and throw it at this project. I mean, we could find maybe some reserves, $200,000 in reserves, put it on this project, and then over time use TIF to repay and replenish those reserves. But we still have to find a pot of money to pay for it from.
That's one of the discussions I had with Representative Bowden on that particular legislation, was that the other option or another option is to increase your stormwater rates, point where it almost becomes a liability in some ways for the city, because your utility rates now have just jumped so much because you have to pay for that stormwater development that goes into any kind of a development. So there's some issues there that I've had. It's not many. I've had 2 people call me today about issue that adamantly opposed to taxpayers paying for a developer to do this work, so. I just think I think it's the wrong approach to take. I think if a developer buys a piece of property and is gonna develop that property, that they need to know that the stormwater is part of that process. Taxpayers should be paying for that.
I pulled up the treasurer's report. Of the $6.8 million in our TIF fund, all of that is obligated somewhere else.
Yes, those are collections for future debt service payments on the IWC, as well as other bonds and other commitments we have for TIF related payments.
Yeah, I mean, on TIF, we can't, put it simply, we can't collect TIF without some plan on what we are gonna use those dollars for. So if you look through, I think we just talked about this a couple days ago, we're on the 7th or 8th amendment in our Hillcrest, so we've done 7 different conditions with things that we've added in over time. So we have projects that we've identified within our TIF plan that are collecting TIF revenue that are all obligated to be repaid.
The other thing that just to maybe clarify a little bit, the fronting is not an allowable use within state statute to front something out of the use of TIF, and that's something we just recently learned in the last couple of days. If we were to front, let's say the $250,000 or roughly, our proportionate for, for fixing that, the sanitary that's in the stream bed right now. If we were to front that, we would have to front it out of operational dollars that we would have to pull from a different project somewhere else or something else, and then use TIF dollars once generated to reimburse ourselves from that. So we can certainly take TIF dollars and reimburse the developers, their tax dollars going back to this project over time. That's something that the council could do, but fronting is not an allowable use. That's what we just recently.
What was our first proposal or estimate for TIF repayment? Wasn't it like just under 2 million, like 1.9 or something like that, or is it?
2.3.
One second, I have that in this.
Higher.
How you say
Maybe like
that?
2.3.
2.1. Somewhere in there.
I don't have what the number was, I just have the repayment plan, and I think we were looking at about a 10-year repayment. Possibly, I'd have to go back and look at it, but yeah, I think it was around 2.1. Is that what you said?
The original was 1,098,000 actually, so.
And then this updated sheet that they gave you shows the 1.7. Because they did remove roughly 400,000, and from the email communication today, those were grading costs are, yeah.
Yeah, we just took it to 8 feet. Instead of filling in the whole ditch, just so that part of it.
I do think we need, the sanitary sewer, like I said, it's been, Charlie, if you know what the age of that sewer is, and that was a discussion I had a long time ago.
And we looked into it. Unfortunately, we don't have great records on exactly when that line was put in. But from some televising efforts that we've done and looking back and just the last time we actually lined that sewer line, our best guess is we probably would have another 15 to 20 years or so in that sewer line. Before it's probably gonna get to a point where we have issues where we're going to have to plan on replacing it.
Would make sense in some ways, though. Put a whole bunch of dirt and fill and everything over that too.
That's been staff standpoint from the start in discussions that we've had with the developer. If we're going to fill this ditch in, we'd rather replace that line right now rather than drive cost up in 15 to 20 years to dig a 20-foot hole and go through that process.
And I agree with that.
Especially if it ever needs to replace in the future, you can't just dig straight down. It's gotta be shored out, and you wipe out a whole bunch of property when you're trying to maintain and fix that. It's better to replace it up front.
I was on the council in 90 and 91. That was when we did some work on that sanitary sewers. I know it's at least almost 30 years old, 30-some years old. So you're probably getting somewhat towards the end of this. And it was lined one time when I was on the council early. So it has, in my opinion, if we're gonna do anything, I think from a city standpoint, that makes sense because that is a function of our city. sure we maintain the sanitary sewer. That's something we should replace.
You know, the one thought that I had when I was going through the packet is, you know, we're saving 200,000 on the West Clinton.
I've thought of that as well.
I mean, you know, as you're looking here, it pretty much covers, you know, options 1 or options 3B. Just a thought that I had.
I was gonna say, I think the only issue with that, not looking at it completely, is those are storm sewer funds. We're talking a sanitary sewer thing on there. I don't know if we can take one from the other.
The sewer.
Different type of water running through it. But they are different utilities from our standpoint.
I mean, essentially, they're just asking for cost of the replacement upfront of that pipe.
I think, I don't want to speak on behalf of the developer, but I would imagine their ask is still the 1 point whatever million that we're at right now. I don't know if that's changed or not. That's.
Well, I think their ask is that we replace the pipe that is
Upfront.
that is ours up front if we're wanting that done. And Cody's probably, and
I would defer to them on that. I haven't had.
it looks like we're putting some of their options. I think what we wanna do is ensure that you guys can build.
Sure,
So-
yeah, and Cody Sinclair with Inception Group. So here with 3 other members and Eric, going back to December 18th, when we talked, the way we interpreted it, you did say, I think we should take care of the sanitary.
I'm still there.
And so, and then Eric came up and kind of said, look, you can't take care of the sanitary without fixing the storm at that point, right? And then Charlie had talked about encasing it in concrete, which is option 1. Like Eric said, we first stepped up. It's really not what we see as a viable option, correct, Eric? I mean, I don't want to overspeak, but it does not necessarily fix the problem. So you're still back to, you still have a problem. You have a dam. It's a waterway right next to a daycare. It's just not what we should do in this situation. You know, the other 2 options, taking more of the ground, you're wasting prime real estate development in the city of our town, or in the heart of our city. There is some confusion about some of the numbers here. If you look at the packet on option 2, that would be closely related to us. They have dirt here and excavation, $780,000 and a $1.5 million ask. There's no way those numbers line up to fix what we have broken down from that packet you just got, which that was something December 18th that you asked us to do. The question was, what is the ask? If you guys remember, what are you guys asking for? And I said, I think it's like 1.3, but this is just me spitballing standing up here. And so we went back, we took dirt off, we did everything, like Lee said, did different levels of fill on this to make everything work. And you can see here on ours on page 1 or 2, it says Inception Group, fill dirt for storm is $45,500. And these are fixed numbers. These are real. We went out, got the bids and all that. So 780,000 to 45,000, that's a big difference.
Yes.
And so, I mean, it's quite confusing, to be honest, for us, for you guys. And so that's why, here's our ask. And we turned this in, I think, February something of our ask to get to you guys that you guys asked for December 18th, and you haven't seen it yet. That's kind of a, you know, you should have seen it by now and had time to digest this and think of it, even if they came up with these other options. You know, time is of an essence. It's something that needs to get done. We have a lot of carrying costs to hold this, and we've been dealing with this for well over a year. And so here are the numbers. The ask would be 1.7 upfront because you can't fix the sanitary without fixing the storm.
Well, there's 150 in contingencies.
We do have contingencies on top of that as well. So I mean, 1.5, so it's very close to that one that he said, but however, you have 780,000 worth of dirt. 800,000 is not gonna fix the other stuff. I mean, just point blank. So, yes, there was contingencies in there. Thank you just for, and we put a 10% on that. So I will open, if you guys have questions for me or the rest of the group, we can.
You know, Cody, I'm all for building, I'm all for development. It's the upfront cost, the 1.7, right? I mean, that's a lot of money. You know, we're still trying to work through the budget. We're being hamstringed with House File 718. But for me, it's just a big ask right now.
Yeah, and so this isn't just like any, you know, standard stormwater on a development that needs to be taken care of. This is a huge, there's twin 96 intakes here. I mean, it's $1 million, you know, 1.3 just for that. So or excuse me, 986,000 just for the storm. I mean, that's a lot. It's a huge undertaking. So it's not just your standard thing. It is right on the highway. It's, you know, I mean, because there are ways that we can, you know, build some townhouses on the one side, you know, we can leave it open and exposed. It's not something that we think would be a good fit for our city, what would look good. I mean, it's on the main corridor where 20-some thousand people drive by every day. I don't have the traffic study in front of me, but we did do one there, so.
Essentially, that 1.7 is for sanitary and storm.
Yeah, I mean, that does everything in the ask, but it does not make it ready for development, by the way. I just want to point that out. I mean, we still have to. It's on top of that, so it's not development ready, it's just, it's ready for us.
That HR Green, we don't think there's no overland flow capabilities with their designs. So there's no overland flow capabilities. So when we design this with Schneider, you have to worry about ground runoff, right? So our intake by Pipsy's is totally different than their intake, and it's probably about a $60,000 difference between our structure and one that was designed, but there's no overland flow. So there's no groundwater that can flow into their current design. That makes sense. So all the groundwater has nowhere to go. The one we submitted takes care of the 500-year floodplain. We did all the water studies and all that stuff. So all of ours incorporates everything that was required by the city. That's why everything's been submitted and approved, engineered, designed to meet all regulations. The ones that were submitted don't. Just being honest with you, they don't take any of that.
So I
into
think
account.
they're to two different end games, right? And in fairness to HR Green, I would totally, if I was in your position, I would be tearing up their design too, right? It's counterintuitive to what you guys want.
Tearing it up.
So I think it was designed with a different intent in mind, which is from the city's perspective and their engineer's perspective, we're here to fix the sanitary. To Ron's point, the citizens pay for developer stormwater issues now. Those giant intakes have been there for how long? I am.
Years, 20, 30, 40
20,
years.
30, 40 years.
And that.
Those were a known stormwater issue when the site was purchased, right? And so it's just, it comes down to, do we want to participate monetarily, fix the sanitary? Right, and I think we've all generally agreed out of a formal vote that is something that makes a ton of sense and is very supportive of that from a development perspective. It just really comes down to Ron's question. Do we want to start making homeowners pay for stormwater and for fill and for all these different things to make ground developable? And it opens up a can of worms. And
That's what I was gonna say too, Josh.
on top of that, is it the right thing to do? Yeah, what does it open up for us in the future? Every single development going forward. All of a sudden, we are enacting the legislation that Steve is talking about right here in Little Indian.
So theoretically, obviously, this ground is developable. You know, we can develop on one side, commercial on the front, but we're still stuck with a exposed ditch that is very unsightly that we as developers do not have to do. And if that's something that the city is okay with, you know, then I
But I
guess so
think
can the
that's a
developers.
slightly unfair question, at least from my perspective, is it's been there. And it was there and there was trees there. The previous owner took them off. That ditch has been there for how many years, Charlie?
My whole life.
But it's been there forever, right? And so it's not like, is the city okay with it or not? We also have limitations on what we can do. We have different developers that all these different projects want to happen, and we only have so much that we can do. And if there's a ditch going through private property that's a homeowner's, that's their ditch, right? That's how that works. I understand, and I would love it to not be a ditch, but that's on the private property owner to do that. And we could certainly come in and work with you guys to fix it a couple different ways on the sanitary, but yeah, there would still be a ditch there. And I don't have a good answer for you on that, other than it's been there forever.
Yeah, our argument is to properly fix the sanitary in its current location, you have to extend the storm sewer.
Sure.
To properly fix it. Now, to relocate the existing sanitary in different locations, so there's almost a 70-foot easement. Okay, so there's 70 foot in the center of that pipe, you can't build anything besides a parking lot on. So you're taking developable ground, if you go to the east, a lot, actually. If you go to the west, you're taking commercial space. So.
And it just doesn't pencil out. And I get, you know, as developer versus, you know, but it does not pencil out that way. So it will be developed around there and we'll be stuck with an unsightly, dangerous, quite honestly, pretty large ravine that, did get exposed when they took the trees down. That was previous owners and so.
Okay, so my question though is why should the taxpayers of Indianola help you develop your property?
Yes, our question is, maybe it should have been fixed.
Not a question, I'm asking for an answer, I'm not asking for a question.
Because it's
Fix
a,
it properly, we're saying that's.
Why should the citizens of Indianola, not being facetious and I'm not being angry here, I'm just
No.
asking why should we be asking our citizens of Indianola to help you pay for your development?
But it's not really paying for development, you're fixing your current infrastructure.
No, we're fixing what we need to fix as a sanitary sewer.
But
We
you wanna
would
fix it
replace-
right?
Excuse me, replace that, and we would do it in a way that would at least, I think, be somewhat helpful for you folks, but why should you ask the citizens of Indianola to pay for that?
because it's a revenue line that they're already paying. You're charging them to run the stuff through there. Don't you set any money aside to fix 40-year-old lines that are laying in
You do, but that's
stormwater?
sanitary, it's not,
Literally laying in stormwater that's running to the country.
but it's sanitary sewer, not stormwater.
Why, they're both there, Steve.
But I understand, Lee, and I'm not.
And it smells.
I'm not
It's-
arguing, not arguing with you. I'm just saying, why should you taxpayers of Indianola pay for your development?
I think they're already paying in sewer rates. Isn't
But
there
they're paying-
any money to
We're
fix
talking
any sewer
sanitary.
lines?
You're asking us to put in stormwater.
well, we're gonna
Lee,
talk-
just a minute, you're asking us to put in stormwater. Is that correct?
We're asking you to protect your existing sanitary line.
Is there a problem with our sanitary line currently?
Not that we know. It's exposed. I mean, it is exposed, but there's no indication we've televised it.
And if you hadn't bought this property, we probably wouldn't be doing anything with it for right now. And so you're asking the taxpayers of Indianola to pay up to $1 million for your development. My only question is, why should we do that?
Maybe if I could jump in and try to answer that question.
Sure.
I think where the residents could benefit is in the long-term taxable generation
Absolutely.
of developable property, job creation and sales tax through the development of future homes, businesses, jobs, and everything else. So I think the benefit could come back.
Yes.
The question is, should the taxpayers pay it upfront or not? And I think there's a couple of different issues there. One is a legal question that is newly jumping up in our faces in the last day or two, which is, do we have the legal right to do that? And what we're hearing right now, we don't have the legal right to front. We can front using anything but TIF. So if we took money from our reserves, we could front. And then we could reimburse ourselves with TIF over time. But TIF is a if-come, not an income. And if the development builds out and if the assets are put in, then it generates a property tax increase and whatnot. It starts creating a revenue stream for which we can pay ourselves back. So it really comes down to the question of, do we want to set up a property to create a long-term generation of revenue that could be enjoyed by the city over time, and at what risk level? And I think the council, what I'm hearing is that the council is willing to kick in and pull from reserves, and we can't do it from TIF. We got to figure out some reserves somewhere by juggling projects around. An amount equivalent to what we would need to do the extension of the useful life of that line, replacing that line. And that's somewhere in the $211,000 to $250,000 range. That's our proportionality. Maybe it's not the right way to do it, but it's the way to do it in which we perpetuate the useful life of that over time. If you were going to do it the right way, the 1.5 million-ish and whatnot, that sets you up for proper development. So you can now put earth on top of that and you can start developing from that. It sets you up for success, which we would love to see you set up for success. But we can't front that because we really just we don't have the reserves to pull from $1.5 million to pay ourselves back over time with those dollars. So if the developer, just to finish the thought there, if the developer if the city were to come up with the 200,000 savings from Clinton, or, which is a great idea, or other ways to come up with the $250,000 portion, we reimburse ourselves with TIF dollars, and the developer were to be able to put up the rest of it to get it to where they want it to be, and the city were to be able to take the tax dollars generated by their own investment and give it back to them over time, then it benefits you. Yes, you have to come up with the money up front, but it benefits you over time, and that you can remunerate, you can be paid back for that investment. And that creates a long-term win for you and a long-term win for the city. It's just that the risk shifts from the taxpayer to the developer. And if you're willing to put up those dollars and the council's willing to reimburse you, then everybody's a win. It's just the unknown factor.
That reimbursement comes from the taxes they paid.
It's the taxes.
The development.
The whole concept of TIF is that we will never enjoy those tax dollars unless something triggers.
Right.
The use, the increased valuation, and so we need something to kickstart, prime the pump, whatever you want to call it, to get that project moving forward, so that then those dollars start generating, they go back to them, and then once they're paid off in 7 years, 10 years, whatever it might be, then the long-term remuneration comes.
Right.
So that's the whole concept here. It's just, I really legally think we can't, and I think financially, we don't have the money to do the 1.5.
Why did you bring us here tonight? To embarrass us? I think I had this conversation with Ben 8 months ago. Right. And then you guys have a meeting on December 20th. You leave us set for 2.5 months. When we left that meeting, we thought we had a deal. We lowered our dirt cost, and now you bring us in here tonight and bloviate about this sewer line again. I mean, I don't even know why I'm standing here. We could have done this in private again. You had 2 calls from people that think somebody's getting rich. Have you seen the pictures of that line, Ron?
Been down.
I mean, I know you have, but I mean, it's ridiculous. That's been sitting there for 20 years. It's a revenue line for the city. This ain't like my backyard that I'm fixing my own private. This is a revenue generating line that has, I think the expense could be more if you don't fix it. It's just a guess. It's bad. It's not just like some normal thing. There is a 15-inch sanitary sewer line laying in water that runs to the country club. This ain't, I mean, and the side hill is full of concrete. I built the T-Mobile building next door, had to do a huge overdig because it's an old concrete dump. What if the side rains and one of these pieces of concrete falls on your contraption down there that you guys want to do? It's a dangerous situation. It's not a normal thing, and it happened. It's not some oblivious piece of property. It's the best piece of property in town. And when I bought it, I knew there was a storm sewer down there, but I went to look at the easement to see if maybe on there, if somebody fixed it, there ain't one. And I don't know what prescriptive means, but what does it mean? You can just trash somebody's property? Because that's what you're doing right now to our property. You got a exposed sanitary line in stormwater that runs to the country club.
Sanitary line is a sealed line. It's not.
It smells.
But the bottom line, Lee, is you're talking stormwater here versus sanitary. There's 2 significant differences here. Cities have never had.
Agree.
Okay, and so cities for a long period of time have never picked up the cost of stormwater, always been back on the developer. I think we're trying to partner with you to a certain extent, probably not to the extent that you want us to partner. But my whole argument about why citizens of Indianola should pick up the cost of stormwater runoff is because it's not our responsibility to go into a private property and put that and develop that. That's not our job. Our job is to make sure that you have sanitary sewer available and understand that line's been exposed. It has been exposed for over 35 years.
Right.
Yeah. There's also an exposed sanitary line off of Brookwood right now. we've talked
know
about as
that.
well, and how we fix that, and that's something that we've got to look at down the road. But that's because of runoff from up above the watershed. So my problem is that it's stormwater. I don't think the city of Indianola and the taxpayers of Indianola should pay for stormwater development in a private development. That should be your responsibility for every development that you do, whether it's any of the other developments we do here or not. Sanitary sewer, exactly, but not stormwater.
If you go look at my record, you see how much money I've asked the city for. Zero. And I've built a lot of stuff here.
I'm not
A ton.
arguing, I'm not
I've
arguing.
asked for nothing for 31 years. There's a sanitary line in stormwater. Is
There is
why
not.
I feel as a citizen, it should be fixed.
And
And you can, and past councils were gonna dump it on somebody. And then they cut the trees down and now it's, I mean,
you can cut those trees down.
I know the guy did. It's a tough one. I gotta admit.
And it's a
And
very
I-
tough concept, and I agree, but it's not again, this is not against you, Lee. It's just the fact.
Well,
that
what I
it's not.
feel like is we could have had this conversation in private instead of lugging us up here.
I didn't look.
Bloviating about, I don't even know what prescriptive even means, but I'm gonna find out, and so are you guys.
Lee, I'm sorry that you feel to interrupt, that you feel this is a
How do
bad
you feel?
situation. I feel like I would probably be.
I knew we were gonna get ambushed, I told these guys, and here we are.
Is all perspective. What you have here is 6 people and staff.
They could have told us what you weren't gonna do it, and then we could have went back to the drawing
know
board.
exactly.
Instead, you had to bring us up
Here's where
here.
I'm at. I respect what you're saying, and I don't wanna have an argument with you from the dais. It's unprofessional. It's not how we're supposed to do this. Okay, if you wanna have a private meeting with staff, I think that's great.
That's what we should have done.
Well, again, you have people here working for you, trying to help figure this out. And we generally are sitting here trying to help figure this out because of the legal ways to do things. I think everyone's been on board with a very large tip payment on the back end, right? We're trying to work with what we have to work with. But I'm not gonna sit here and have an argument.
But
I'm
you
sorry
should go
that
back
you-
and watch your meeting for December 20th,
I know
because that's
exactly
not,
what I'm on
nothing
board
what
with,
was said.
And I know exactly what I've never been on board with. Okay?
I know you
So I'm not
haven't.
gonna argue anymore. I so appreciate you guys coming up, and I'm sorry you feel like it's a waste of time. I assure you it's not, at least from our perspective. We're genuinely trying.
Trying to what?
I think we're trying to protect the 16,000 taxpayers that have voted us into this position. And I echo, this isn't an attack. I think you've done great things in this town. And I think we would love to help you, but we just don't have the upfront funds.
But I think you're helping the town. I think I mean, I told these guys, I'm a hindrance to them, because everybody looks at Lee Adams and we don't want to help him. These are young guys that are trying to do this. I just happen to be a junior partner.
Lee, I think we did, we did.
It's just, I mean.
Can I
had to
finish my
spend-
statement? I think we did pretty well by you on the East Highway 92.
Yes.
So we're not against Lee Adams. We're not against the Inception Group. We're not doing that. I go right back to what Ron just mentioned, that we feel like we have a responsibility to the taxpayers in this community. That's our job. And
so
we are offering exactly what Ben talked about. We are offering to take care of the sanitary sewer, replace that. And we are offering to look at coming on the back end on the TIF taxes that are paid and coming back on the back end and repaying those. But
So what's the proposal to fix it again? I'm missing something.
I don't think the proposal is for us to fix it. It's how we
Well, it's
determine,
sanitary.
it's how we determine what the upfront payment to the developer is.
which would cover, and a lot of thought is that we would cover the cost of sanitary replacement.
Could we not pull any funds from lost funds?
I don't know if we have anything available, but
I mean, that's sewer and.
I mean, that
I
would be
know
a
it-
very logical place to pull that money from.
We do not have enough to pull the 1.75.
No, I'm not,
Oh,
I'm
but
not talking that.
something.
Yeah, we could certainly pull 250 and make that work. And.
But is there more, is I think what we're asking is, so we wanna, what we're asking is just, is there other financing options that maybe we could explore here, because.
You could bond.
Yep.
And you could get bond proceeds and pay for it all.
So on TIF, what my understanding is, if you do a TIF, then there's no tax abatement.
You can't do both, because if you're abating. the
So
site,
that's
there's no
4
TIF
acres
generation.
of commercial ground up front. You're gonna tell this large company, there's no incentives. Because we had to use all the TIF.
The incentive is the best piece of property in the middle of Indianola. That's the incentive.
You know how they are, Josh. I mean, they all want
I deal with
something.
TIF, with CID programs all the time. I do know how it works, in fact, and. And I just go back to the fact here, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, I don't want to have an argument here. I think we generally all understand where everyone's at. We're trying to.
Well,
work
we should have done
together
this
for that.
private then.
I can't take that back now, and so I don't want
Maintenance private.
don't want to be anything other than I think it really comes down to.
So
are we willing to contribute upfront for the sanitary? And then do we believe that it's our right or our to try to figure out anything upfront for storm and grading? We've offered $2.1 million in the back end on TIF that more than covers all of this, which is typically used for. Some people use it for infrastructure, some use it to lower their land basis on their purchase so they can sell it cheaper to clients to attract them. I mean, so we'll just use it to pocket the cash later. We just have to decide like what are we doing?
Look, here's my thoughts on it. You know, that land has sat vacant for 20, 30 years. Nothing has been done. It's prime real estate. You know? To me, this is something that is bringing in economic growth to our community, which we desperately need. It's bringing in more housing, which we desperately need. So why shouldn't we at some point invest? You know, I'm not saying we have to front it all, but I do think we should consider at least a portion of the storm sewer. You know,
Well, I think we're talking about doing all of the storm sewer, it's just doing it on the back end. And the sanitary on the front end, I think that's what we're really talking about now. We're talking about doing the whole thing. It's just timing of when.
Well, they can make a choice how they want to use the TIF money, and my understanding is correct, is that right?
But on the front end, at least it gets you don't have to do it the way that it's designed to replace it. You don't have to use the 250 in that manner. But the 250 is what would solve the problem and can be used on whatever manner as approved by engineering and everything else that would best support your development. You just get 250 up front and the rest of it comes in the back end.
I mean, you're not just like putting in a storm sewer line. You've got to build walls to go under Kentucky. This isn't. Yeah, go throw a storm sewer line in. This is a huge project that the city's left for 30 years, 40.
I still don't think stormwater is an issue that the city
And
pay for.
so where do we go from here?
What did we come here for? Are we?
Yeah.
going to vote?
We cannot talk about these things in public, private.
No, that's fine.
You can talk to staff.
Are we
Staff-
taking this to a vote? What are we voting?
Okay, so today what we're here for,
What are we doing?
Some direction. So what is it gonna take for them to build is I guess what we're asking. And I think this is what it's gonna take for them to build their development, correct?
Yes.
We already
To
know
get it
they
started,
already get
yes.
money. They also said if you have to get a loan, you can put some interest on there because the TIF evaluation is not gonna get there. Like, and that's why they're like, yeah, sure, add on some interest. We will not get there with the evaluations that are proposed for that.
It's only an 8-acre piece of ground.
There's not enough meat on the bone. It's a prime piece that will create economic growth and tax basis for a long period of time, like.
There's Shaw. Looking at our treasurer, it's probably putting him on the spot there.
I figured that's why you had them here. So you tell me they don't have any money.
Hey, maybe that's something Doug, me and you can talk about tomorrow if I mean, I don't know. It's all comes down to the law and what we can do.
Or what you are willing to do, because obviously some are saying not upfront at all,
And
some
some
are
of
saying
us-
more, but we're not voting on, that's what we're asking. Why are we really here? What's really the question today?
Yeah, you could have just told us no and
One
you
is-
could have moved on.
They said, what's your ask? We had already presented an ask of 2 million and we said, no, we do not want it on the back end. So then we came here, said we'll fix the sanitary, and you said, with Eric, we said, we cannot do both. You have to do both. You can't just do one. And they said, okay, what's your ask? We came back, we lowered everything. Brought it up, it was 1.7 with 10% fluctuation, which is about 1.55, is what our real ask is. And that's what we asked, and we asked that in February to get it back to you guys, get in front of council, to have that conversation and see which direction from there. Now we're sitting October 5th, 6th, I don't even know what the date is, and we still have no direction. The question is, we're not really, I haven't talked to the group, but we really didn't like the TIF idea at the beginning. We really don't like it now. So the question is, how are we gonna fix this? Or what do you guys want?
This ditch was on the docket in like 20 years to repair. It's already on the city docket to fix, but it's 20 years away.
You have an opportunity now. So if this was a 200-acre project that you could put in $1 million infrastructure, it pans out. This is 8 acres that it does not pan out like they want it to pan out.
Part of the directive of the council was for us to go and get an independent review and to bring that. So that's the reason we're here. See, I missed that.
Get you a number.
Yeah.
Right from Mr. Richardson's mouth said, give me a number of what your ask is and Mr. Ray. So that was the ask for us that we gave to you guys.
So the ask of staff was for us to go get an independent review by a third party engineer.
That's our third engineer on this project over a year. That like, where is the urgency
But
here?
there's Snyder and HR Green.
No, Snyder had somebody that reviewed all the engineering documents before. Who was that? Clark or somebody? So.
Reviewed. Oh, yeah, there's been a stormwater management plan that they've submitted as part of the development,
And
and
they are
since Snyder reviewed,
approved.
we sent it off to another engineer to review.
So we're going back to the drawing board after over a year with approved plans saying go for it. And now we're going back all the way. Like, we need direction. We need to figure this out.
And the plans are still approved from our standpoint. Again, I think this discussion all revolves around how it's gonna get paid for.
Right.
And I think what we're saying from what we're getting is we can look at some upfront, we can't look at the full amount upfront, but we can definitely rebate the rest of it on the backside of the project.
Can we do that annually based off of the valuation that they put up?
It's based on what we collect, based on their improvements.
So they've given us an estimate of what the project's gonna be valued at. We work with Michael Maloney then to put that into a spreadsheet and show how many years that would take.
But what
to
I'm,
generate.
what I'm asking is, let's say that they get $1 million up next year. Can we rebate them annually based off of the valuation that they have put up? I know that that's been used in several other cities. So we would start paying them next year.
It's
For instance,
Well, it
based off
would
of
be
the
the first year
valuation
that
they have.
taxes are collected on it, so that's usually
Well,
2 years after the project.
I was
is
trying to
built.
make it easy
Yep,
for
yep, I'm
everyone,
sorry.
you know, yeah, but is that something possible?
So,
Well, there is possibility for upfront, correct? Bonding, I know. There are options for upfront that are not being discussed and not being voted on and not being up for debate, which is what this is about.
So would need to
There's
know
only
what
a
their
couple of
bonding
people really
power is.
discussing this and not everybody has their input. It's just being pushed
we
aside.
start bonding though, it turns into a public project and there's, we then take on the project, we start doing the plans, we hire the contractor. I mean, there's a whole process to that too.
Plans
so-
are approved, correct? So would you have to go back and
Yeah,
redo?
yeah, yes.
Interesting. If Snyder and Associates, that should be pretty expedited then.
I don't know,
The thing is,
we haven't gone that far yet.
and I totally respect where you're coming from and whatnot. But we only have so much capacity on the city credit card to be able to pay for new public safety buildings, new libraries, new whatever. We only have so much capacity. We only have so much in reserves, which are dwindling down because the state changes from the state legislature and other environmental or economic impacts upon our budgets. So we are constrained. We only have certain amount of resources. On the back end, we can do anything and everything because it's really your money going back to you. And so that's why we feel very confident on the back end and building interest or whatever else, we feel confident we can do that. But there are those of us who have lived through 2008, where all of the best of intentions were out there and agreements were put in place, and then the economy came. And suddenly properties changed hands, new developers came in, and the TIF never generated to repay the city. We
I don't
understand
know what piece of property you speak of.
nationwide,
Yeah.
downturn in the economy.
If it in 5 years, this piece of property, if developable and easy, that's why this has taken a year and a half and nobody else has done it because it's not an easy piece.
Right.
It will be developed eventually. I mean, 100%. If it's ready, 8 acres in the middle of our town, it will be developed. So your risk there is minimal at best.
Maybe, again, it goes back to what the economy does too, and that's,
Sure.
that's the issue.
After 5 years,
Yeah.
it's gonna rebound and it's gonna be a prime piece of real estate that someone will develop. And then you're
Well-
asking people that are willing to put money and infrastructure into our community, put their own money up. You wanna put all the risk on an infrastructure that should have been fixed 20 years ago. And the development does not have to be done based off that ditch. So I think the question too is, what does the council wanna do with this piece of
Yeah,
property?
maybe we'll just do a little, I mean, we got a couple of people that'll do up front. We'll put some townhomes and we can continue with the rosy smell on Kentucky.
I think there's a lot of
Cause
questions.
I don't know what more we can say.
And there is a smell, I mean.
I mean, we're kind of at a
That is
disadvantage.
a
We didn't
community
realize this was gonna be the conversation tonight. We'll
I can
have to
add-
do some thinking.
Some of the points that you brought up, though, I did ask for numbers, you gave it to us, and that's what we have in front of us, and that's why I asked for those numbers and asked you, to give those to the city. They never say that we'd pay for those, and I never said that we would look at that, I said, or that we would finance that, but I said we need to have those numbers, and we've got them. And as far as that ditch should have been fixed years ago, again, it goes back to whether or not the city should be paying for stormwater on it, on private property, and that was private property for many, many years. And again, something that sanitary sewer, but stormwater was not our purview at that time. And so I think from my perspective, if you're asking for what direction we give right now is that I would like to see us find a way to work, the money available for the sanitary sewer, but that's basically it, the cost of that.
So if we do nothing, what are you guys gonna do? Cause you've got a old sewer line in a creek, essentially. Laying in open water. So what's the city council gonna do about that? If we say, no, we ain't doing nothing?
Well, if it's
Well, no, I mean, because
we wouldn't
you're
have done
not
anything.
looking at it from that point of view. I think I mean,
Well,
if
sure
I
we
was
are.
sitting up here, I'd be scared to death if I was this city for what's going on down there. It's a sanitary line in a waterway,
It is in Brookwood.
okay?
I think it's a lot to digest right now.
Yeah, I mean, I mean,
But it sounds like you're about to table this. We've been at this for a very long.
I don't wanna table
And
it, I know
urgency
we
is not,
have been.
we don't even know what we're voting on here. We personally
Well,
don't.
we're not really even voting on anything, cause all we were asked to do was give direction. I think what I want the direction for us to work out is. Well, what we can afford, we don't know,
I'm not willing to pay for storm sewer.
okay, but we're not.
You're only one person.
I'm only one.
Only one person, so
Telling you.
we understand that now, okay, so that's been cleared, and I know how Josh feels. and-
Better be willing to do it for every other development that comes through.
Absolutely, absolutely. What I'm asking for is and what we said back in, I did go back and watch it. We advised staff to work this out among yourselves, with them. That was the direction we gave, was figure it out, just get this going. We're 3 more months into this. I don't wanna hold you guys off anymore. It's a completely separate project from Pickard, so I don't even wanna compare them, when we talk about it at the end of the day. I don't know what direction to give here because we've got 6 people, so I'll just let you guys say your.
We don't even know if we can get money in the front end.
We don't know,
We need to-
and Mr. Fulton, I mean, I think we need to have some clarification on what was the word they used, permittable on the easement? We need to understand that, a clear definition of that and.
We can tell you that.
I can tell you that right now.
smart guy who had a lot of respect for it told me once time it's a game of chicken.
Descriptive easement just simply means that a property owner or that someone is allowed someone else, in this case, the city, place to burden their property with encroachment that lasted for over 10 years in open, notorious, hostile possession. So basically the fact that if the city doesn't have an easement, who knows what happened. That sewer's been there for more than 10 years. It's been open, notorious, hostile just means didn't have an easement, you put it there anyway. So the law then deems that to be, that strip of land to be owned by the city, or the easement to be owned by the city. So I've litigated dozens of those cases. So I don't have any problem with restricted easement. Obvious, it's sitting there.
Now, if we were to move it, one way or the other, east or west, then we would need to acquire a new easement.
And I don't think that's the desire to have any movement on that, correct? You guys wanna keep it where it's at.
Due to the fact you're losing 70 linear feet of
Absolutely, yes.
surface. The lot on 8 acres.
Yeah.
I guess I'm a little appalled at the fact that, you know, in December, we asked staff to go back and look at this. And said to kind of come up with a solution or figure out what we can afford to do. But yet tonight, I'm sitting here looking at 3 different options from another. I just don't understand why, you know, if we had their numbers in February, why are we just now getting these?
January.
January.
There was no meeting that we had with the council to present those numbers at a time. We can't just.
Why do we have to have a meeting? I mean, why couldn't I have
That's
gotten this
out
in
of
an email prior to this meeting?
It's part of an overall discussion from direction that we were given from council, so we have to present that in a public meeting together with everybody.
We've gotten stuff before via email, so.
Not on something that we've been waiting for direction on, though. Again, the direction was given us from the council, so we have to wait for a public meeting to present that. But we're doing it unifiedly with some stuff. We've been
Why was
waiting-
it in the packet though?
And that's my fault completely. I did not include that in the packet and I apologize for that. But again, we had been waiting for the information from HR Green to come in and have them analyze it. And again, we're just trying to give some perspective from a different source on what these costs are and some different ways to do the process.
And you did say that in December that we would have HR Green look at it. I'm just wondering, I mean, just given where Mr. Cannon is employed and given where our own city engineer is employed, they obviously are employed by the same people. Do we not trust the one opinion? And I know we do trust Snyder.
We have not gotten any cost estimates from Snyder on this. It was a bid that the developer received is how we're receiving those cost estimates. So there was never an engineer's estimated cost coming from.
I mean, just look at the estimate costs on the dirt though. How do we know the other numbers align with that when the dirt number they have is 780,000 and we provide you one with 45? That is substantially different. So like, they don't even align. It's crazy. Like you just.
The HR
numbers, no one
was
can
just
look
for
at it.
us to ensure that tax dollars were good, proper, and the ultimate end dollar, about 1.5, is about the same as 1.5. It was to give a surety that tax dollars, if they're used in this manner, are legitimate.
And we're talking high level estimates as opposed to they've gotten down into and actually gotten bids on it, so.
I mean, that is a
Right,
huge.
I guess
so it's
that's
go-
what I was getting
Go
at.
back to the Clinton, go back to the Clinton project, you know, the engineer's estimate was $200,000 higher than it actually bid out at, so sometimes those costs don't line up.
So, sorry, I guess that's what I was getting at was the fact that in December, we had said. Make sure that what our costs would be to do this is aligning with what their costs and
And they
what
do.
they're saying.
And they do, I mean, ultimately.
Then we would move forward, but. So that's why I'm kind of confused by what we were presented with.
The question
Option.
how do you want us to move forward?
It really comes, yeah. Down to, do we do want, it's the upfront, everything, some of it upfront, nothing
You're
upfront.
telling us we can't do it, Brian.
Yeah, we don't have the capacity, I don't believe, I mean, without doing a full analysis of it, and we can get into that if we need to and maybe look for other revenue sources, but we've talked about it internally. And I don't think we have the revenue sources to pay for 1.7, 2.1, whatever that is. I mean, we might be able to do it, but then you're hampering your.
We're hearing a lot of, but we don't know though, but we don't know, but we don't know. So,
Well, I mean, but again, from.
and
my
I don't
stand-
know because I don't know how much money we have in the
The
bank.
question really is the council majority willing to pay stormwater?
It's not just about stormwater, Steve. It's about the economic development and the development that it's gonna bring to the biggest and ugliest hole right off our highway corridor. It's going to bring more housing. It's going to bring jobs. It's
It
going
is
to
about
bring-
stormwater though. It's because now you've set yourself up. Every other developer to come into town and say you paid for stormwater.
Absolutely, and the
Well,
government
but
might
that's
make us
not,
do
but
it
that's
anyway.
not our role. That's not our role.
I would say that
Right,
we would.
can I finish, please? It's not our role.
Oh.
My opinion.
It might not be our role, but the legislature might demand that we do that.
Eventually down the road, but why are we, so we can.
Still alive today.
I
So
think you have to make a decision from this council what the majority is as to whether or not we're willing to.
Yes,
take this
so
on.
Steve Armstrong, your turn to talk.
I have the concerns that we set precedent for other developers to come in and ask the same thing until we're forced to do so.
So one quick note, I don't want to interrupt.
Been my thought. It's been my thought on that as well. You know, do we do the sanitary line? Sure. But do we replace everything, fill it with dirt? I do have a concern that we set ourselves up for precedent with other developers down the road. If it was a prime piece of real estate, it wouldn't be sitting there like it is right now. That's my thought. I don't know about the smell. We don't smell anything whenever I go to Walmart, so.
You gotta live on that side of town.
But,
Good idea, unless this is
You know,
on your head, yeah.
I'll just say my sense of smell is not the best either, so. That's just my thoughts, is I've had those concerns of what's the precedent down the road. Sure, there's some Iowa legislation that could force the hand down the road, but we don't know. And I just have concerns for the future that we have other developers come in and say, you did this. And that could be even more money than this is, and we don't even know if we can legally do it. Or if we even have the money, to compound the issue.
I don't have an appetite for an upfront. I just think we don't have the money. We don't know if it's legal. I do echo a little bit of concerns of taxpayers paying for stormwater runoff. I might have an appetite for doing TIF. But it'd have to be all on the back end. I don't think the city can front the money.
Yeah, that's fine. So can we go? I don't know what more to say to you guys. Go look at what your problem is down there. And I'm serious because it's a serious problem. These guys can sit there and act like it's no big deal and it's over on Buxton or whatever. It's 40 feet of exposed and it's unstable ground around it because it's an old concrete dump. So just go look at the side of the hill.
I just quickly do want to know, I understand as other developers coming in and that ask, there's one thing that I did say earlier, this is such a unique project. You know, working with Snyder, it had been made to our attention that in 20 years, he's never had to work on something quite as intricate in a situation like this. So I do think there's a little bit of differentiation between a normal development situation and this. And, you know, just, I understand how you say it has not, if it was a great piece of real estate, it would have been developed. I think this is the problem. I mean, we've been dealing with it for over a year and that's what most people don't want to deal with, you know, and that's why we're here. I don't think you can really argue that it's not a prime piece of property. It does have its issues, but if those issues are fixed, it is an extremely desirable piece of property. It just does not pencil out because you can only fit so much on 8 acres.
I do think it's a great piece of property and I think people have passed on it because of the fact that they see that big ravine and they say, no, thank you. I guess I applaud you guys for taking it on. How we fix it, it's a difficult question. I mean, I'm not in favor of putting it on the taxpayer's back.
So fix your sewer line.
I do want to.
You need to fix that.
Yes, I am in favor of fixing sewer line. I could also go along with TIF dollars to help you guys out on the back end.
So the cost of the sewer line on your projection is around 366,235. None of those options 1 through 3 were around that. Is that something you guys can get on board with saying, the sanitary side on their projections up front?
I mean, the fact is, it's not just their sewer line, it affects other customers. Something goes wrong with it.
Mayor, if I may, since December, been on board with figuring out how to handle the sanitary up front on ours. Now, do I know if they're 366 or the 250 from HR Green is appropriate number? No, we need better direction on that. We need an actual break down and compare these apples to apples. That's one of the hard things we have in this. We're looking at one bid that's broken down a certain way, and we're seeing stuff from HR Green that's broken down a different way. I mean, estimating 101, you have to be apples to apples. I guarantee you these, not the ones being nefarious or not, we're just looking at two different things. So I personally am still on board with contributing up front to the sanitary as long as we can reasonably make that dollar amount work. 100%, that is our responsibility, has been that way. Okay, but again, to just, so everyone's very clear on where I'm at, it is 100% always a risk for any development in the future. There's numerous developments and builders in the state that have been sure things until they weren't. I lived in Regency Homes, one of the big ones in the state for a long time. So I am not comfortable with gambling more of our taxpayer dollars up front than that sanitary fit. I believe we've been more than accommodating in trying to work on the back end with a traditional tip payout, which is how it's typically done. And I think that's been it. And that's all in on that. We can stop talking and I'll go have a beer.
Yeah, I mean, I've been asked, what if we go broke 5 times now tonight? Can we leave?
Yeah,
I mean,
Lee, that'd be
yeah, we're
great.
not Regency.
That'd be great. Thank you.
No, we know you're not. So I think the direction let's figure out how much the sanitary sewer costs and let's get that worked out on the staff side and not have to come back, and let's do that as quick as possible, if possible. Because we.
And I think at this point, honestly, it'll be in the form of a development agreement when we get there. There's time involved in that too, but I think that's really what we're asking from the council tonight is staff goes and negotiates a development agreement. What are the parameters that we're negotiating the development agreement? Are we doing the sanitary sewer line? Are we doing everything? So I think the direction we're getting is look at that sanitary sewer line, start negotiations on the development agreement. That'll come forward in its final version to the council at some point in the future.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you all coming. Moving on to new business, number 1, I need a first and second motion of a resolution approving the preliminary plat for Emerald Bay Development.
Second.
All right, Charlie?
Yeah, Jesse Rognus has submitted a preliminary plat request for the Emerald Bay development, which is located at 103 North Jefferson Way. The preliminary plat does show 3 proposed commercial lots and 7 residential lots. The subject area is located at 2103 North Jefferson Way. It's part of the Emerald Bay Planned Unit Development, which was approved by council just a few months ago. Commercial lots are shown as lots 1, 5, and 10 on the plat. Those are the lots that front North Jefferson Way. And the residential lots are shown as lots 2 through 4 and lots 6 through 9. That would be on the west side of the
Hey,
plat.
Charlie, can you look? Jason, we can't see the diagram on this front monitor here.
Oh, we have no signal on their TV.
I'm sorry, Charlie, you can go on.
Is everybody able to see up here if I just keep going?
No. Twists to do that.
Okay.
Can you pull it back?
Well, there, we did think we went. You're on the pre-plat under the, on the agenda?
Yes.
Oh, you're on pre-plat?
Yes.
Plat, and we're on page 2 of it. Yeah, we're going a long time tonight, so. Did you get that, Melissa? On page 2? Okay, all right, I think you're good to keep going.
Everybody's good? Okay. Jason, do you want me to wait till you can?
No, keep it on.
Commercial lots, again, shown as lots 1, 5, and 10 on the preliminary plat. The future commercial uses are all speculative at this point. Lot 1 has been identified as a future convenience store with fuel sales consistent with the approved PUD master plan. That's on the far northeast corner of the plat there. Looking to the rear, residential lots are shown as lots 2 through 4 and lots 6 through 9 on the preliminary plat. There are some outlots. Outlot Z is shown as a future parkland with stormwater detention basin. A future trailway will be provided at time of site development, as well as a trail linkages east of Jefferson Way. From our standpoint, looking at it, the plat does match the PUD plan that was just approved here a few months ago. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend that the plat be approved with the condition that any areas or issues and concerns with the stormwater management plan be addressed as part of the construction document approval process. Really what that means is we reviewed this. There are a few outstanding issues on the stormwater management plan. Rather than have those few issues hold up this process, we want to move forward. We'll get those issues taken care of when we review the construction documents internally. But we're pretty confident with that process. So if there's any questions to me, I'm happy to answer them.
Charlie, on the lot today that we did in Fair Acres, that was lot number 9. Is that what that was, or what again was that?
The one that you set the public hearing for?
Yeah.
That was lots, well, and it's a long country club, so it's probably not even gonna show up on anything that you're looking at here.
Okay.
Yeah, lots 3 and 26 of block M.
Well, that's the backside of that.
Yep.
Okay, so that would be down Trail Ridge Avenue if it went for on.
No,
That is right.
it's towards, it's almost right at the corner of Hoover and Country Club.
I got you.
A little bit south of
Okay,
there, but.
all right, I know where you are then.
Ask the developer a question.
You don't have to ask me
As
that.
long as it's not about TIF or upfront money.
Absolutely not. Is
Jeff
lot,
Rognes, 12509.
that's a really easy one. Is lot 1 gonna be developed before Norwalk's specific gas station also?
I can ask, I don't know right now.
If we can work that out, that'd be really great, because we don't
yeah.
get a lot of wins all the time on
I
Norwalk.
think it really kind of depends on their process with you guys too, and I know they met with you last week, so you probably know more than I do right now, but
Not,
their goal, I think, initially was best case scenario, fall, fourth quarter of 24, reality, first quarter of 25.
that's when they plan to start construction, but we would receive site plans probably sometime this summer.
Gone again, Jason.
All right, we got.
Tap it out. Thanks, Jason.
It's, it's going again.
All right, well, I was hoping that you were gonna say you were doing both of them and you were like, build yours first. Okay.
Are you planning on putting streets in fall here?
Yeah, that's the goal, is
That's
to
the goal.
keep pushing through the process. There's a few wild cards out there right now, but
Not fall though. You were thinking spring, summer.
I'm thinking, I'm thinking like,
You've got equipment out there already.
I have to, yeah, this summer, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
You got equipment out there.
It's exciting. Land ready for that convenience store. All right, any other questions?
I watched the planning and zoning meeting and I saw where you guys are trenching down roughly 15 foot in some of those areas along that south line there.
Not really trenching down, more keeping some of the existing grade and trying to work with it to keep our new product lower so that we don't impede some of the view of the. We had a few neighborhood meetings and tried to take some of that stuff in account, but it's tricky because some people want to look over it, some people don't want it at all, and some people want it completely screened. So trying to find that balance there. So we're currently showing everything being quite a bit lower, and then on that slope, adding some trees.
For doing that.
Great.
Added an additional buffer area to, on the, specifically on the commercial area that we did carry through on the residential.
I was just gonna say, if you look at page 3 of the plat, you can see where their proposed grade lines are there. Those blue lines, those are different elevation lines, so you can kind of see on the south side there how it's about 15 feet from those rear property lines to where the development will take place on this property.
Yep.
It's exciting.
Yes.
All right,
You.
thank you.
Thank you.
Jackie?
Councilmember Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Solms, Ray, Dolby,
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
All right, moving on to other business, city manager's report.
I just have a few things really quick. Due to the favorable weather, the contractors for both the Hillcrest and the Square, final phase of the Square projects are both wanting to kick off, start their construction seasons next week.
Go for it.
And so, Hillcrest will be, shut down so that they can get a good jump on that. So we'll,
What will that shut down? Do you know, will 9th into Quail Meadows, will that stay open? This is a question I just keep getting from, people of students traveling. They're wondering if their children are gonna have to go out to the highway to get to the high school, if they'll be able to go from Quail Meadows down North 9th, if that's gonna stay open.
So we just had a meeting last week and the contractor wants to start on the east end. So between 9th and towards 14th, but we are still currently, before deciding the final scope of the project, where they want to start, they are having discussions with IMU, Mid-American Energy on where they can start. So right now.
Near.
But AP, the
But
good
if we could
question,
keep 9th open.
the intersection of 9th and Hillcrest, would that remain open if that's the break and the phasing?
Partially open like we did 7th, if you remember, they had it partially open. So they will do something of that, but we are still determining what to do, whether temporary access through 9th or, so even if they close it, they will have access. There's some few properties that they have to maintain access. So we are looking at all options, whether to completely close it, partially open.
Okay, would you let us know, cause last time that was closed, it did have a lot of influx on Iowa. With all the rerouting, and so we wanna give the school district a heads up, especially for that intersection.
Absolutely, yeah. The school
Thank you.
district, yeah, we will inform them separately too, so.
Appreciate it.
On that subject, because we have this whole temporary construction process going on, we know that the council is interested in the truck routes and truck traffic. We will be working with business owners, property owners out in that area to do a good analysis. But we will likely make that process go a little bit slower so that once the construction is over, that's when we really set the truck routes. Because we don't want to confuse people with permanent truck routes and temporary truck routes that get confusing at the same time.
Anything that Aaron can put out too, you know, as far as, you know, what the situation is, that'd be helpful too, I think, so.
Yep, and same with the square, the west side of the square will be kicking off. We're gonna do our very best we did the sanitary sewer already, the manhole, our shutdown on the street was already completed last year. A lot of the major underground work, we do have to work with Mid-American and IMU on their infrastructure improvements going in.
Don't be as afraid as Mid-America on this one. Their work that they have to do is a little bit easier than anything we dealt with last year, but
So they're not gonna give us any significant delays again.
hopefully not. We've started working with them already to get them in there. The good thing is IMU's got about 2 months worth of work that they have to do in there. Mid-American has some gas service lines that run under the west parking lot into the buildings that are along Ashland back there. So at some point we'll have to close that parking lot down and allow Mid-American access. So they can lower that gas line through there, at which point that parking lot's probably gonna be closed. We're hopeful that this should be wrapped up by July 1.
But at least the north and the south are open and unencumbered at this point. So that project should be good.
I'm sorry, Ben, maybe you mentioned it. What do we do about that alleyway? Is that still on?
North, south or east, west?
East, west.
The east, west is the pedestrian walkway where we're putting the pavers in. Are you talking about that?
Oh, pavers are going in there?
Are you talking the one behind the businesses or the one between the chamber and the? Yeah, that one's already been done.
It's done.
Yeah.
Well, what's the one that we were worried about?
East, west.
That one.
West, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we had a lot of TLC when we did that project.
Okay, all right.
Yep, we did it very carefully and non-impactfully and the whole thing.
But it made the building safer.
Yeah. Also had several awards. Those are gonna be coming in the days ahead and we'll announce those more formally in the future. But some good things are happening. We've got 3 different awards and recognitions that are gonna be coming to us. We just have preliminary information that was shared with us at this point. Look for some of those coming forward in our communications in the weeks ahead. And then lastly, our sewer department does an analysis of the reliability of our lift stations from time to time, and our lift stations all have power backup. They have transformers that run those lift stations with power backup from time to time. Some of those transformers, 3 of those transformers are getting pretty bad, pretty old, and they have long lead times. As we've been watching what IMU has been going through, some of those lead times for transformers have been upwards of a year or more. And so we've recently had some analysis on that, and 3 of those transformers that really should be replaced at some point in the future. We have an opportunity with an 18-week lead time to make a purchase for those 3. Even if we set them on the shelf and we plan for their installation at a later date, getting that order moving forward more quickly could be advantageous to the city. Though that is not an anticipated or budgeted expenditure, the cost of just the transformers, not the installation, is $58,786.73. With that said, we just bid out the Franklin project, and that project came in $80,000 less than anticipated. That's a sewer project for which we do have some budgeted monies that could be utilized to at least place the order on these things that have long lead times. We would put that on the agenda, have you move forward with that. We would certainly do that on the 18th. But where we know that there's this window of opportunity and there's this lead time issue, we're wondering if we could bring that forward to you as a ratification on the 18th. And go ahead and at least place the order. We could always cancel the order if we needed to, so it doesn't obligate us. And so we didn't want to surprise you with a ratification on your next week.
Good plan from my perspective.
Okay, very good.
That's just mine, I mean.
You go ahead and order them.
I think that's,
Go ahead.
any objections to that?
We could always use transformers. I'm buying you, we're taking in a heartbeat, I think, if we didn't end up using them or whatever. And I think that's it for my report, unless the council has any questions.
Item B is enter into closed session in accordance with Iowa Code Section 21.51J to discuss purchase or sale of particular real estate only where premature disclosure could be reasonably expected to increase the price the governmental body would pay for that property or reduce the price the governmental body would receive for the property. In the first and second motion. And Jackie.
Councilmember Armstrong,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Jones. Ray.
Aye.
Dalby.
Aye.
Can we take a 2-minute break? Go back.
I wanted to say nay.